What's up guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. So today we have a very interesting crossover between DEKU and Rimuru Tempest. So the title will be, what if DEKU unlocked Rimuru Tempest Predator skill and devoured all quirks. So this story is going to be very interesting, and if you're new here, please subscribe the channel and also like the video.
Pain. That was the first thing Izuku Midoriya registered. A burning, crushing, suffocating pain. His lungs screamed for air that wouldn't come. His arms trembled. Green sparks crackling faintly as he tried to move, but it was too late. The sludge villain had him. Again. But this time, All Might wasn't coming. Blood leaked from the corners of Izuku's mouth, nose, and eyes as the pressure closed in. Thoughts blurred, memories flashing like broken frames in a dying film reel. His childhood notebooks, the cries of, "You'll never be a hero," Kachan's scowl. His mother's smile, and All Might's promise. "You can be a hero." Was that true? Darkness seeped in like ink spilling into water. The crowd outside couldn't see what was happening. Couldn't save him. The last thing he heard was the sickening squelch of the villain's shifting sludge, and then silence. In the black void between life and death, there was no pain. No breath. No panic. Just stillness. And then, is this what dying feels like? It's hot. I'm burning. Izuku Midoriya's thought cracked through the silence, raw and terrified. Acquisition confirmed. Resistance to heat acquired. He twitched. Or, he thought he twitched. My lungs, I can't breathe. It feels like I'm being stabbed. Acquisition confirmed. Resistance to stabbing. Acquired. The sludge, it's inside me. Is it still attacking me? Did I die already? His mind spiraled. Every memory flickered like a film reel on fire. Bakugo's screams. The villain's laughter. The hopelessness. Acquisition confirmed. Resistance to pain acquired. I remember so much blood, was it mine? He whispered into the void, unsure whether it was a voice or a thought. His body, if it could still be called a body, floated in the darkness, weightless and undefined. Acquisition confirmed. Blood no longer required for physical structure. Reconstructing physical form. Optimal survival body determined. Slime. Body type. Slime, confirmed. Now I'm cold. Acquisition confirmed. Resistance to cold acquired. Notice. Dual elemental resistances detected. Combining acquired skills. New skill generated. Thermal fluctuation resistance. Quote. Well, I hope Kachan tells my mum to delete my notes on quirks. The thought slipped out like a sigh, half joking, half regretful. Due to insufficient information on the topic of deletion and/or quirks. The nearest possible acquisition will suffice. Acquisition confirmed. Resistance to electricity. Acquired. Also, paralysis resistance has been acquired. I can't believe I never got to kiss a GI. RL that wasn't my mum. If I do get reborn, I want to fix that. Izuku muttered softly, his eyes closing slightly as he floated, weightless in the void. Acquisition confirmed. Unique skill confirmed. Acquisition of the unique skill, Predator acquired. Notice. Scanning of neural pathways in the mind has created the unique skill, Sage. Haha, a sage. Sounds like something that would evolve in a video game to something called Great Sage. Izuku muttered out, feeling the last of his consciousness slip away. Acquisition confirmed. Sage will evolve into the unique skill, Great Sage, when certain prerequisites are met. A cool, wet sensation surrounded him. Blub. Izuku's consciousness blinked open, if consciousness could be said to blink. He was different. His senses were strange and muted, but still there. He felt the cold touch of water dripping around him. He was lying on something soft. Smooth. What is this place? He tried to move, but there were no limbs. No hands or feet. Just a shapeless, jelly-like body. I'm a slime. The realization hit him like a splash. I'm a slime. Izuku thought, sounding half shocked, half curious. Acknowledged, you are a slime. Whoa, who said that? Izuku thought. He couldn't seem to voice these concerns aloud, but he felt the voice was an ally. At least he hoped it was. Izuku blinked, or rather, felt the closest thing to blinking he'd ever experienced. Hello, can anyone hear me? He thought, sending his mental voice out into the void of his mind. But there was nothing. No answer. No guidance. Only the dripping of water echoed in the silent cavern around him. Okay. That's unsettling. He tried again. Is anyone there? Some kind of voice. Hello. Still nothing. His pulse, or whatever counted as a pulse in this new slime form, quickened. Did I lose the voice? Was that all a hallucination? He let out a shaky breath, trying to calm himself. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I was a hero in training, or at least trying to be. A pause. Still nothing. Well, maybe I'm on my own now. The slimy mass shifted beneath him as he wobbled to his feet, or what passed for feet. The cold stone beneath him was slick and smooth, and a faint glow from bioluminescent fungi dotted the cavern walls. Okay, first step, figure out where I am. Then figure out what I can do. Instinctively, he extended a small part of his body toward a nearby pebble. The slime oozed over it, enveloping it effortlessly. Whoa, he thought, surprised. I just absorbed it. From inside his mind, a notification appeared. Acquisition confirmed. Predator skill activated. Absorbed small inorganic matter, pebble. So, this is Predator. Weird, but cool. He shifted his attention to a small bug scuttling near the edge of a puddle. I don't want to hurt it, but I need to know if this power works on living things. He slowly extended his slimy tendril and engulfed the insect. Acquisition confirmed. Predator activated. Absorbed small organic matter, cave beetle. Skills acquired. Acid secretion, sticky thread. A rush of new sensations flooded his mind. Okay, that's a lot to process. So, how do I use the new ability? Izuku muttered out, his thoughts running a mile a minute. Suddenly, he sensed something rising behind him. He turned and saw a giant snake-like creature staring down at him. Oh shish, Izuku shouted mentally, reacting fast. Using his new skill, acid secretion in his slime-like form. He spat a ball of corrosive liquid at the snake. As he did, he heard the familiar voice ringing from the void in his mind. Acquisition confirmed. New skill, acid bullet acquired. The acid ball splashed against the snake between its eyes, blinding it. The creature thrashed wildly, blinded and furious. The giant snake thrashed wildly, blinded and furious, its tail lashing out in a powerful sweep. Izuku dodged instinctively, his slime form wobbling but agile. All right, Izuku, stay calm. This is like a battle, but with new rules, and this snake is just the villain I have to face. The snake thrashed wildly. Blinded and furious, its tail whipping through the air with deadly force. Izuku dodged just in time, his gelatinous form wobbling but surprisingly quick. All right, Izuku, focus. Acid bullets are your best shot. He gathered a concentrated glob of corrosive slime at his mouth and spat it out. A searing acid ball hurtling straight toward the beast's exposed side. Opening curly bracket. Acquisition confirmed. Acid bullet fired. The acidic projectile struck true, sizzling and burning through the snake's scales. The creature let out a pained hiss, retreating sluggishly as more acid dripped from its wound. Izuku wasted no time, launching a rapid barrage of acid bullets. Each hit weakened the giant serpent further until, finally, it collapsed in a heap, unable to continue its fight. Silence fell. Izuku's mental voice echoed. Predator skill activated. Target defeated. Initiate absorption process. This is it. Slowly, Izuku extended his slime tendrils, wrapping them carefully around the serpent's massive body. He could feel its form dissolving into his own. Strength, senses, even venomous glands transferring as streams of data flooded his mind. Whoa, I killed the snake, Izuku muttered, his voice tinged with surprise. He didn't feel the same flush of shame or regret that usually followed taking a life. Maybe it was because it wasn't human, or maybe it was because he was no longer fully human himself. Does this mean I'm someone else now? His mind churned, but even in this strange new form, his determination stayed the same. I have to keep moving forward, not just for me, but for everyone I left behind. After absorbing the snake, Izuku's senses sharpened. The cavern around him suddenly felt alive with movement, smaller creatures scurrying in the shadows, unaware of the new slime presence. His instincts kicked in. If I want to survive and grow stronger here, I need to learn from everything around me. A bat fluttered close, sensing the slime's movement. Izuku enveloped it with careful precision. Acquisition confirmed. Absorbed small organic matter, cave bat. Skills acquired, echolocation, flight, limited. As Izuku absorbed the cave bat, a sudden sensation washed over him, a new awareness of sound vibrations, not just in his mind, but around him. Then, a strange thing happened. He tried to focus his thoughts, and to his surprise, a faint voice echoed in the cavern. "Hello. Can anyone hear me?" Izuku's voice was weak but real, his first words spoken aloud since his transformation. "Whoa, I can talk." He sounded amazed, a mix of wonder and disbelief. The voice inside his mind responded. Acquisition confirmed. Vocal cords enabled through absorption of cave bat. Grinning to himself, Izuku tested it again. Looks like absorbing the bat wasn't just about echolocation and flight. I can speak now. Encouraged, Izuku turned his attention to the glowing plants nearby, their leaves shimmering with vibrant energy. He stretched a tendril out to absorb a few. Feeling a gentle warmth spread through his form. And these plants are great for healing. So with my slime body, could I make potions? Izuku questioned out loud. As he does, he feels another creature appearing from the cavern, a giant centipede emerged, its segmented body writhing threateningly. Without hesitation, Izuku absorbed it as well. Acquisition confirmed. Absorbed medium organic matter, giant centipede. Skills acquired, poison claws, regeneration. Poison claws and quick healing. These will definitely come in handy. Each absorption added to Izuku's growing arsenal, molding him into a more versatile, powerful being. He paused, thinking about what came next. This world is full of creatures to learn from, and I'll need every advantage if I want to protect the people I care about. His resolve hardened. I might be a slime now, but I'm still Izuku Midoriya. And I'm going to survive here, no matter what. Izuku continued to explore the cavern, the faint glow the fungi casting eerie shadows on the walls. His slime form shifted eagerly, ready to absorb whatever would make him stronger. A small group of giant spiders scuttled nearby, their many eyes glinting in the dim light. Without hesitation, Izuku extended his tendrils and engulfed them. Acquisition confirmed. Absorbed giant spiders. Skills acquired. Web creation, poison fangs, enhanced agility. Web creation and poison fangs. That's pretty cool, Izuku thought, imagining all the ways he could use these in a fight. Further into the cavern, a pair of cave lizards basked on a rock. Izuku absorbed them next. Acquisition confirmed. Absorbed cave lizards. Skills acquired. Camouflage, enhanced reflexes. Camouflage could come in handy for stealth, he mused. And reflexes, gotta keep sharp. The cavern walls trembled as a deep, thunderous roar echoed through the underground chamber. The very air seemed to crackle with raw power. Izuku's slime form quivered, sensing the overwhelming presence approaching. What in the world is that? He wondered, his instinct screaming both caution and curiosity. Suddenly, from the shadows emerged a colossal dragon, its scales shimmering like storm clouds, eyes burning with untamed fury. "Who are you, little slime?" the dragon said into Izuku's mind. Izuku panicked, staring up at the enormous dragon that seemed to be behind a wall of untapped power. "Can you talk, little one?" the dragon continued, not noticing Izuku's mid-panic babble. Izuku swallowed hard, or as hard as a slime could manage, and forced himself to stay calm. "Why yeah, I can talk," Izuku replied, his voice small but steady. "That is good, little one, you're an odd slime, the first one I've seen for a while. Especially one as odd as you," the dragon's voice said inside Izuku's mind. His thoughts seemed to connect to the massive dragon. Izuku blinked, or whatever the slime equivalent was, and felt a strange warmth spreading through him. "Odd. I guess I'm used to that," he said softly. A small smile forming in his mind. "Well, little one, you stare up at Veldora, the storm dragon," the dragon now known as Veldora says, his mental voice brushing on Izuku's mind. Izuku's consciousness trembled at the sheer power behind the name. "Veldora, the storm dragon," he whispered, feeling the weight of those words echo through his very being. "I'm honored to meet you," Izuku thought, his resolve strengthening despite his new slime form. Veldora's presence surged like a thunderclap, vibrating through the cavern walls. "Little one, your spirit is fierce. Perhaps together, we can change this world." Izuku's gelatinous form wobbled slightly as he formed a shape resembling a question mark, a rare expression for a slime. "What do you mean by that?" Izuku asked aloud, curiosity and confusion mixing in his mental voice. Veldora's booming presence seemed to soften, the stormy energy flickering with a hint of amusement. "Your spirit is fierce, but your form is weak. You are a slime, a creature often seen as fragile and insignificant. Yet inside, you carry the heart of a dragon like I. Valdora's voice boomed, mixed with a sort of laugh from the dragon creature. Uku's slime body pulsed with a mix of awe and determination as Valdora's words echoed in his mind. A heart of a dragon, huh? Izuku thought, a spark of hope flickering within him. Maybe being a slime isn't so bad after all. Valdora's laughter rumbled through the cavern, shaking loose small droplets of water from the ceiling. Exactly, little one. Together, our powers will grow beyond imagination. But first, you must give me a name. Izuku blinked, if slimes could blink, and felt the weight of the moment settle over him. A name, he echoed. Yes, a name is power. It binds us, shapes us, and marks the beginning of our bond. Izuku considered carefully. His mind raced with memories of heroes, friends, and the path he wanted to walk. Well, you are a strong dragon of the storms, to come from that. I believe Tempest would fit you. Izuku says with his entire form vibrating with excitement. Valdora's eyes glowed brighter, the storm within him roaring in approval. Tempest, he echoed, his voice rolling like thunder. A fitting name for one who commands the fury of the skies. Izuku's slime form shimmered as a new bond formed between them. An unspoken promise of strength, friendship, and shared destiny. Then from this day forward, Valdora declared, I am Veldora Tempest, and you, little slime, what is your name? Izuku Midoriya. Izuku mutters out, feeling odd about his name for some reason. Like it shouldn't fit him in this new form. That sounds like a name a human would have. Were you once one little slime? Valdora asks, lowering his head down to see eye to eye with Izuku. Izuku told the sordid past of how he came to be before the great dragon of the storms, Valdora, who listened on with his full attention. Valdora's eyes gleamed with ancient power as he gazed down at the small slime before him. You've carried the heart of a hero through death itself, Izuku Midoriya, the storm dragon rumbled. But now, your old name belongs to the past. Izuku's form pulsed with anticipation, waiting for the new name that would mark his rebirth. With this name, you will forge your own path, a symbol of strength, hope, and change. Valdora's voice echoed rough the cavern like a storm breaking free. From this day forward, you shall be known as DEKU Tempest. Izuku's consciousness shimmered as the name settled deep within him, a perfect blend of who he was and who he was becoming. DEKU Tempest, he repeated softly, the weight and promise of the name filling him with renewed determination. Valdora's stormy aura brightened as thunder cracked in the distance. Together, DEKU Tempest, we will carve a new legend into this world. For centuries, silence had been my only companion. A silence so deep and maddening that even time lost meaning. Until now, this small slime, no, this friend, appears before me, a creature brimming with curiosity, compassion, and potential. I have not seen one like this before, not in all my long existence. He LS himself Izuku Midoriya, an oddly human name. But I sense no ordinary human spirit in him. There is something ancient, something heroic, buried beneath that gelatinous form. And now, he asks me, Veldora the Storm Dragon, a question. What do you mean by that? I chuckle inwardly, a deep, thunderous rumble echoing in this mental space we share. It has been far too long since I've had someone to speak to, someone who listens. You see, young one, I am not here of my own will, I begin, lowering my massive head so my glowing eyes meet his fluid form. This prison, this cave, is my cage, one cast by a powerful human. A hero. His essence ripples, surprise, perhaps. Understanding. Her name was Shizu Izawa. She was strong. Too strong, even for me and my arrogance. She bore a mask and a sword that could cut through even my magic. The memory strikes me harder than I expected. I pause. I fought to protect my pride, to roar and strike against humanity's rise. But she sealed me away using a forbidden spell. Unlimited imprisonment. I pull back slightly, watching him absorb my words like rain on dry earth. It binds the target within a suspended space, outside the normal flow of time. To the world, I was gone. Dead, perhaps. But in truth, I have been trapped in this stasis for over 300 years. These were the words Veldora said to Izuku, who sat motionless. His slime-like body gently pulsing with an inner light. Unlimited imprisonment. The name alone felt like a death sentence. A power. that could remove someone from existence, not by destruction, but by erasure from relevance. Izuku shivered at the thought. They felt final, heavy, like chains forged from loneliness and sealed with the passage of time. That's awful, Izuku said at last, his voice quiet but firm. 300 years. And you've just been alone. Indeed, Veldora replied. Alone, forgotten, but unbroken. My spirit remains intact, though I admit, the solitude has been suffocating. Izuku remained silent for a long moment. Not out of fear, but out of empathy. He had known isolation, rejection, helplessness, in another life, long ago. Before this strange rebirth, before the voice in his mind, before he became anew, before he became Deku Tempest. Then let's break the chains, Izuku said, suddenly. Let me help you. Veldora blinked, then laughed, a low, booming ho that shook the cavern like a summer storm rolling across the mountains. Ha ha, you speak boldly for a slime, young Deku. But I like that, I like you, Veldora said, his dragon maw curving in the image of a smile. Izuku nodded, resolute. Then we're agreed. I'll find a way to free you, Veldora. Just then, a voice echoed within Deku's mind, smooth, clinical, and familiar. Request. Activate Uni. K skill Sage to scan magical phenomenon unlimited imprisonment. YN. Izuku stiffened. Sage, he thought. Yes, he said aloud instinctively. A brief hum pulsed through his core, like a current of energy running backwards through time itself. Analyzing. Result. Seal classified as absolute barrier type. Spatial temporal suspension. Structure. Multi-layered magic. Weak points. Theoretical, anchored by sealed soul within construct. Probability of success with current skillset, 2.9%. Supplementary skill Predator may allow internal assimilation of structure. Risk. Extreme. Outcome. Uncertain. Veldora's massive eyes narrowed. That expression, what just happened? Deku's body twitched with excitement and anxiety. I analyzed the seal. I might be able to absorb it, using a skill I have. Predator. Deku didn't want to explain that he heard a voice that said it had a low chance to work. He knew he had to at least try to free Veldora. A pause. Then another chuckle from the dragon, amused, but impressed. You are full of surprises, Deku Tempest. Izuku pulsed brighter. Let's try. I'll be careful. Confirm. Use Predator to attempt absorption of unlimited imprisonment. YN. Yes, Deku whispered. Here goes nothing, he thought, gathering his slime mass. Slowly, carefully, his amorphous tendrils enveloped the shimmering barrier. A chilling sensation prickled through him, like swallowing a living storm. Inside his core, the seal felt like a cage made of crushing pressure and time itself, dense layers of magic folded tight around a sleeping titan. Deku's form wavered under the immense energy. But his predator ability began to assimilate the structure, not to break it yet, but to contain it within himself. In an instant, Veldora's imprisoned form slipped past the barrier's edge. Swallowed whole inside Deku's slimy body, trapped, yet protected within the prison of his prison. I've got you, Veldora, Deku's voice echoed in his mind, resolute despite the heaviness pressing on him. Veldora's roar vibrated faintly inside the seal, muted but unmistakable. You've swallowed me, but you cannot break the chains just yet, little slime, but I am in your debt if you can. The dragon's voice echoed, laced with both frustration and reluctant respect. Deku's slime body pulsed gently, stabilizing as the seal's magic settled inside. It's inside me now. I'll find a way to free you, I promise. For now, the ancient seal remained intact, but its power was contained, and the bond between Deku Tempest and Veldora was sealed deeper than ever. Crap, I should have asked Veldora how to escape this cave. Izuku said out loud in the empty room, a faint chuckling brushed upon his mind. It was Veldora's smug but respectable presence now settling inside his slime form. Well, I guess I start going in a direction, I guess. Izuku muttered to himself, feeling sort of like a hero in this moment. He was doing something that had a low chance of working, but he was going to keep it. Why? Because he's a slime, a monster that doesn't go back on his word. The silence that followed Veldora's disappearance echoed through the cavern like a fading memory. Izuku, now alone in the vast space where the storm dragon once raged, pulsed gently, his slime form barely quivering in the low mana breeze. Notification. Scanning of unlimited imprisonment will begin. Analyzing time remaining. Unknown. Well, at least I have you to keep me company. Izuku, no, Deku Tempest, muttered to himself. He knew it was a long shot, a spell that sealed away a dragon. Like Veldora might never be broken in this lifetime. But as long as he kept to himself and used his unique skills to survive, Veldora's imprisonment would end, given enough time. I guess I'll head in the opposite direction. And hope I reach the exit. Deku said, just as he slid a slimy inch backwards, and suddenly lost his footing, tumbling deeper into the cavern. Notification. You are now in water. The cold rush enveloped him instantly, his gelatinous form rippling as he adjusted to the sudden immersion. Crap, I'm going to drown. Wait, why am I not drowning? Deku thought to himself, Ling his slime body settled gently on the cave floor beneath the water. Acquisition confirmed. Unique skill, aquatic adaptation unlocked. Underwater breathing and movement enabled. Wait, does that mean? Deku began to say aloud. Yahoo! Deku continued using the new abilities he just acquired to move around in the water, as he does. Acquisition confirmed. Unique skill, water propulsion acquired. After a few moments of joyfully darting through the water, Deku's slime form began to experiment. He condensed a portion of his body, shaping it into a sharp, translucent blade of swirling water. Water blade, he thought, fascinated by the edge that shimmered in his slime form. With a swift flick, he sent the blade slicing through the water, cutting effortlessly. Acquisition confirmed. Skill, water blade acquired. Not bad, Deku muttered. Next, he formed a small sphere of compressed water in front of him. Water bullet, he realized, focusing his energy to launch the projectile forward. It shot through the cave water with surprising speed, hitting a distant rock with a satisfying splash. Acquisition confirmed. Skill, water bullet acquired. Deku grinned inside his mind. If these skills help me survive, then I'll master them. The chill of the water slowly faded as Deku Tempest propelled himself toward the cave's edge, his slime body rippling with newfound confidence. His Uni-K aquatic adaptation made swimming effortless, a new power that felt strange yet exhilarating. Emerging from the water, the air felt crisp against his gelatinous form. He glanced around the dim cavern, noticing clusters of bioluminescent plants clinging to the damp stone walls. Tendrils of slime extended, carefully enveloping the glowing leaves. Acquisition confirmed. Absorbed bioluminescent moss. Skills acquired. Enhanced night vision, mana detection. The gentle warmth spreading through him was comforting. These plants could heal wounds and reveal hidden energies, a boon for survival. Nearby, veins of shimmering ore caught his attention. Slowly, Deku extended a small part of himself and absorbed the minerals embedded in the rock. Acquisition confirmed. Absorbed cave ore. Skills acquired. Hardened form. Mineral resistance. His slime body briefly hardened, feeling denser and more resilient. Further ahead, tiny insects scurried about. Without hesitation, Deku absorbed one, feeling. A rush of new sensory data flooded his mind. Acquisition confirmed. Absorbed cave beetle. Skills acquired. Enhanced sensory perception. Every new absorption sharpened his instincts, preparing him for the unknown outside. Finally, Deku came across a giant door carved into the cavern wall. He paused, pondering how to open it. Notice, humans are approaching, 3 in total. At the familiar voice echoing in his mind, Deku darted behind a nearby rock, heart pounding as he waited. As sure as the day is long, the massive door groaned open. Standing at the cave's entrance were 3 adventurers, each strong-looking, battle-ready, and capable of popping Deku like a balloon. He froze, instinctively activating his camouflage skill learned earlier. His form shimmered, melding seamlessly with the stone behind him. The group passed by without noticing the faint slime hidden in the shadows. With a silent sigh of relief, Deku slipped past them, making his way toward the world above, a new chapter in his strange and wondrous journey. The sun shone bright over the goblin camp as Deku approached, the sounds of daily life echoing through the clearing. Children playing, warriors training, and murmurs of worried conversations. His slime form shifted cautiously, every sense alert. It seemed like everyone was watching him. Why? Inside the camp, the goblins watched silently as Deku arrived. Their leader, a grizzled goblin with a scar slicing through one eye, stepped forward and lowered his head in a deep bow. You grace our presence, honored one, may we ask why you come to our humble village?" The grizzled goblin chief asked, tilting his head slightly. A confused look crossed Deku's slime form, and a small question mark bubbled up from his gelatinous body. The goblin chief motioned for Deku to follow him inside his tent, where the murmur of the camp faded into quiet shadows. The flicker of a small fire cast dancing light over rough-hewn walls, and the scent of herbs filled the air. "Sit, honored one," the chief said, settling onto a woven mat. Deku shifted uneasily, the sensation of the rough floor beneath his slime body strange and unfamiliar. Something twisted inside him, uncertainty, maybe. He had stumbled across this goblin camp entirely by chance, yet they treated him with near reverence. Was this world truly so kind, or was there something more beneath the surface? "May we ask?" a young goblin woman began hesitantly, only to fall silent as the chief shot her a sharp glare. His expression spoke volumes. "Be silent, lest you anger this powerful being. Your honored one, with your grace, our village has a blessed day with you here," the chieftain began, voice trembling with equal parts reverence and desperation. "But, we request a favor of you. And if you assist us, may our lives be yours." He bowed low, forehead nearly touching the mat. Around him, the goblins followed suit, their silence thick with expectation. Those final words echoed in Deku's mind. "May our lives be yours." They weren't just desperate, they were pledging themselves to him. The room felt heavier, like the air itself held its breath. Deku's slime form pulsed faintly, the weight of tea. He chieftain's words settling in his core. He hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "Tell me what's going on." The chieftain looked up, relief flashing across his worn features. "We are hunted," he said. "Each night, the howls grow closer. A pack of direwolves, huge, intelligent, relentless. They tore through 2 neighboring goblin camps. We are next." The female goblin from earlier spoke softly, "Ey come when the moon is highest, silent until they strike. We have no warriors strong enough to resist." Deku stilled. Images flashed in his mind, broken huts, bloodied earth, and the sharp teeth of beasts in the dark. "All right," Deku said. "I'll handle it." The moon hangs high. Howls shatter the silence. Deku stands at the edge of the village, slime body quivering in anticipation as the direwolves break from the trees, massive, glowing-eyed monsters, claws ripping up the earth. Leading them is one, taller, broader, scarred, its breath steaming in the night air, fangs dripping with anticipation. "You send a slime to face us." The thought rippled through Deku's mind, deep and growling, telepathic, primal. It didn't speak with words, but with sheer presence, raw disdain laced through every syllable. The other goblins heard nothing. This was a challenge, spirit to spirit. Deku's form stilled. His instincts spiked, but he held his ground. "Then you've misjudged me," Deku replied, focusing his will into this fight. A fight he has no clue if he'll survive. Notice. Hostile psychic contact detected. Analyzing, success. Alpha direwolf possesses limited telepathy. No mental corruption present. Predator. Ready. Skills. Analysis. Absorb. Stand by. The leader snarled aloud this time, lips curling. Without warning, it charged. Deku didn't move, not yet. His form shimmered, condensing just before the impact. The wolf lunged with thunderous momentum. Crack. Deku launched upward in a burst of wind, using water blade to slice across the wolf's shoulder as he leapt. The direwolf skidded, howling, but recovered instantly. Blood sizzled against the cold grass. The pack paused. The leader's eyes locked with Deku's glowing core. "You are no mere slime." "You're right," Deku said. The battle had begun. The direwolf alpha lunged again, faster this time. Its claws raked through the dirt as it twisted midair, jaws wide, aiming to tear through Deku's core. But Deku shifted, split, ting his form into a wave-like arc that surged beneath the beast, fluid and controlled. He reformed behind the wolf, glowing greenish-blue for a flicker of a moment, his slime body humming. Water blade. The compressed blade of high-speed liquid launched again, this time striking deep into the alpha's flank. The creature yelped, snarling as it turned, fangs clamping down on empty air. It tried to shake off the pain. But Deku was already moving again. Fast, predictive, focused. This wasn't just instinct, this was breathing. He leapt. Boom. Deku used the rebound from the wolf's attack to flip above it. And then he dropped, his full slime form compressing into a hammer-like impact, slamming into the direwolf's back. The ground cratered. The alpha howled. You fight with will, no hunger. Its limbs buckled. Its breath rattled. Deku reared back. Predator. His form surged forward, engulfing the direwolf's body as it collapsed. Black mist spiraled upward as the technique activated. Inside, he could feel the body breaking down, DNA patterns being mapped, combat instincts being studied. Absorption complete. Skill obtained. Direwolf form. Unique trait. Shadow step acquired. Additional skills. Menace, thought transmission. Supreme sense of smell acquired. The rest of the pack froze. Then, one by one, they lowered their heads. First the second in command, then the rest. Subdued by might, Deku blinked, slowly reforming back into his slime form, stronger now, even after the battle. The wolves had stopped. The danger had passed. The village behind him erupted in cheers, the goblins rushing out, overjoyed. Deku just stared at the place where the alpha had stood. He hadn't wanted to kill, but he had fought to protect. And now, he had to lead. The village was quiet now, the threat of the direwolves ended. Their leader fallen. Deku sat in his slime form, surrounded by the battered but awestruck goblins. The direwolves that remained knelt nearby, including the fallen leader's son, who had fought with desperate fury and then bowed in submission when Deku spared him. The old goblin chief limped forward and bowed again, tears in his eyes. You've saved us. Truly, you are worthy of worship. But, we have no names. Our kind, we are born nameless, and die as such, unless gifted one by someone like you. Deku tilted slightly. This again, this, honored one, thing. But he could feel it, magic, real and potent. Tied to the act of naming. He hesitated, then nodded. All right, he said quietly. Let me try. He pointed a tendril toward the chief. Your wisdom kept your people alive. I'll name you, Ganzu. The old goblin's eyes widened, and his body began to glow faintly. Deku turned to a young goblin who had helped carry the wounded. You showed courage. Your name is, Koda. He kept going. One by one. Baku, Mira, Teiko, Doru. Each goblin glowed in turn as Deku gave them names, a warmth filling the tent with every spark of magic released. Finally, he looked toward the wolf, the son of the fallen leader. The beast met Deku's gaze without fear, lowering its head in shame. You're not your father, Deku said softly. You chose mercy. Loyalty. That matters. He hesitated. Then, I name you, Ranga. The wolf lifted his head, surprised. Then his body pulsed with energy. Deeper, brighter than the goblins, before. Deku wobbled slightly, his slime body drooping with exhaustion. Whoa, that took more out of me than I thought. His vision blurred, and the tent spun around him as sleep forced itself upon him. A faint warmth filtered through Deku's translucent form as his consciousness slowly stirred. His slime body felt heavy, unfamiliar, yet comforting. Blinking sluggishly, he became aware of soft murmurs echoing around him. Honored one. Master, the voices whispered in unison. Opening his eyes wider, Deku's gaze settled on figures surrounding him. Goblins, taller, sturdier, their eyes sharp with newfound wisdom. And beside them, a massive wolf, its fur sleek and shimmering. Eyes bright with loyalty. Notice evolution. Goblins have evolved into hobgoblin. Additional notice, direwolves have evolved into Tempestwolves. Whoa, what happened? Deku questioned, as he does. Notice, naming creatures has affected you. Significantly depleted magicules have recovered. Deku wobbled slightly, trying to sit up but feeling the unfamiliar weight in his slime body. The goblins around him stood taller and broader, their muscles visibly bulked up, faces sharper with a newfound confidence. Their usual rough edges had smoothed into something more disciplined, true hobgoblins. One of them stepped forward, a young female hobgoblin with bright eyes and a respectful bow. Master Deku, we are stronger now because of your blessing. The massive wolf at Deku's side, Ranga, let out a low, rumbling growl of recognition and loyalty, brushing his sleek fur against Deku's form. Deku smiled weakly, still adjusting. Looks like the naming really kicked in, huh? From somewhere deep within, a quiet voice buzzed in his mind. Evolution progressing. Upgrade 2. Commencing. Current status. Analyzing environmental and social changes. Deku blinked at the subtle notification, but said nothing. The voice's quiet evolution felt like a secret only he could sense for now. He looked around the hut, the air filled with a mix of reverence and hope. All right, everyone. Looks like we've got some growing to do. And some work ahead. Ranga barked softly, tail wagging. Master, he said with clear affection, we follow your lead. Deku took a deep breath, feeling a new surge of determination swell inside his slime core. The journey he began in a cave led him here, and it felt like it was only beginning. Deku rose carefully, his slime form rippling as he steadied himself. The hobgoblins watched him expectantly, while Ranga remained close, ears perked. All right, everyone, Deku began, his voice calm but firm. To protect the village better, I want all of you to pair up with a Tempest Wolf. Work together. Train together. Understand each other. A murmur ran through the room, but the hobgoblins quickly nodded. They had seen the strength in Ranga and Hi's pack, allies who could fight beside them. One of the stronger hobgoblins stepped forward, glancing at a nearby Tempest Wolf. The wolf growled softly but lowered its head, accepting the bond. Master Deku, the hobgoblin said. We will do whatever it takes. Ranga gave a sharp bark, his eyes shining fiercely. We follow your lead, Master. Deku smiled, the weight of responsibility settling on his slime form. Good. This is just the beginning. We grow stronger, together. Later that day, the hobgoblins had begun pairing off with their new Tempest Wolf partners, already working together to roll the edges of the forest and train near the outskirts. The village, if it could even still be called that, was buzzing with activity. Deku sat near the fire inside the chieftain's tent, the soft flicker of light casting dancing shadows against the woven walls. Ganzu, the newly evolved chieftain, stepped forward and knelt respectfully before him. Honored one, Master Deku, Ganzu began, his voice deeper and clearer than before. Thanks to your blessing, our people have gained strength, dignity, and hope. Deku shifted slightly in his slime form. I just gave you names. You're the ones doing the hard work. Ganzu shook his head. Without you, we would have been wiped out. You didn't just give us names. You gave us a future. He lowered his head once more, then looked up with solemn determination. And now, we wish to build more than a camp of survivors. We wish to build a home, a village. One worthy of protecting. But, for that, we need a name. Deku blinked. You want me to name the village? Yes, Master. Ganzu replied without hesitation. We wish for this place to carry a name chosen by the one who saved us. For a moment, Deku was quiet, the crackling fire the only sound in the tent. A part of him felt unworthy of such an honor, but another part, the one growing into a leader, understood the weight of this moment. A name. Something strong. Something hopeful. Something new. Ayuden. Deku said after a couple of tense seconds of silence. The word lingered in the air like a spark waiting to catch. Ayuden. Deku repeated softly, more certain this time. It means legend of heroes. Not just mine, but all of ours. Everyone here has fought to survive. You've earned that name. Ganzu's eyes widened. Around the tent, the other hobgoblins who had gathered stood a little taller. The meaning sinking in like roots into fresh soil. A place where legends begin, Ganzu whispered, before rising to his feet. So be it. From this day forth, our home shall be called Ayuden. A ripple of affirmation echoed from those in the tent. Outside, the name spread fast. Ayuden. Master Deku named it. A new start. The sounds of celebration gradually grew louder until the old camp seemed to pulse with energy and renewed purpose. The campfires burned brighter, tools clinked as construction began in earnest, and paired groups of hobgoblins and Tempest Wolves trained with twice the fervor. Back inside the tent, Deku stared into the fire, a faint glow pulsing from within his core. From deep within, the familiar voice of his evolving system stirred once more. Notice. Evolution of skill, sage, reaching threshold. Trigger condition met, preparing for upgrade. He said nothing, but he felt it. His journey wasn't just about surviving anymore. Now, it was about building something worth protecting. A legend of heroes. A place called Ayuden. And Deku Tempest, the slime who once dreamed of being a hero, was right where he belonged. Later that evening, as the camp TT led into a quiet hum beneath the starlit sky, Deku remained by the fire outside his tent. Ranga lay curled beside him, his tail twitching gently in his sleep. The sounds of construction echoed faint. Lee in the background, hobgoblins raising supports, sharpening tools, rebuilding their home into something worthy of its new name, Ayuden. Ganzu approached once more, this time carrying a scroll tied with bark fiber string. He knelt again, offering it with both hands. What's this? Deku asked, extending a small tendril to accept it. A map, Master, Ganzu explained. Of this region, and beyond. SSED down from wandering traders long before the wolves began their attacks. Unfurling the map, Deku noted their forest region, unnamed on the parchment, and beyond it, nestled in a ring of protective mountains, was a name scrawled in bold. Confident lettering, Kingdom of Dworgen. Dworgen, Deku murmured aloud. Ganzu nodded. A city carved into the mountain by dwarves. It is said they possess unmatched knowledge in blacksmithing, architecture, and potion making. Their warriors are said to be fierce and honorable. Deku's eyes lit up. That sounds incredible. If we're going to keep this village safe, we're going to need real tools, medicine, building, knowledge, everything. Ganzu smiled faintly. Exactly. We've done all we can with what little we have. But if anyone can help us build Den into something lasting, it is the dwarves of Dworgen. Deku tapped the map thoughtfully. Then we'll go there. Ganzu's expression tensed slightly. It is not an easy journey, Master. The wilds between here and the mountains are dangerous. And the gates of Dworgen do not open freely to outsiders. I figured it wouldn't be easy, Deku replied with a soft, determined grin. But if I'm going to lead, I need to learn. And we need allies. So we'll find a way. He paused, considering the map and mentally reviewing what they had on hand. Monster drops, rare plants, mana-infused minerals, maybe Then a few crafted items the goblins had cobbled together over the years. Tomorrow, Deku said firmly after a few mental calculations, Ranga and I will head out early. We'll gather what we can, ores, herbs, anything we can use for trade. Ranga stirred beside the fire, his ears flicking as he opened one eye. Understood, Master. I shall accompany you wherever you go. We don't need to show up empty-handed, Deku continued. Turning to Ganzu. If this city is full of master blacksmiths and alchemists, we should bring them things they'll value. Ganzu nodded slowly, pride glinting in his now wiser eyes. Very well. I will instruct the others to prepare what little materials we have in storage. Some of the ores and herbs that remained hidden during the raids might still be useful. I'll leave before sunrise, Deku said. Ranga and I can scout the surrounding areas. If we find anything rare, we bring it back. If not, we still go to Dworgen. Ranga rose, stretching his muscular form with a low growl of anticipation. I shall clear the path ahead, Master. None shall block your journey. As the fire flickered low and the village quieted into sleep, Deku looked out toward the horizon. One step at a time, he thought. That's how heroes grow. That's how I'll protect them. At dawn, soft golden light spilled over Ayuden as the newly strengthened hobgoblins moved with purpose. Crates were filled with monster hides, medicinal herbs, and chunks of raw ore scavenged from old mines. Pottery and basic carved tools were neatly stacked, primitive but heartfelt tokens of the village's rebirth. Ranga stood tall beside Deku, fur bristling with anticipation as they watched the village bustle behind them. Ready, Ranga? Deku asked, his voice a blend of nerves and focus. Always, Master. They dashed into the trees, the forest parting before them like wind through leaves. Ranga moved like a shadow between the trunks, his senses sharp. Deku trailed behind, hopping between branches and NES using water propulsion to navigate the terrain. He absorbed wild mushrooms and sparkling insects, noting every useful trait. Skill acquired, minor poison resistance. Skill acquired, camouflage, advanced. Analysis complete. Mana-rich mushroom, high trade value. They stopped at a grove filled with glowing blue lilies growing in clusters between mossy roots. These'll fetch something decent, Deku noted, absorbing one for study. Ranga sniffed the air. A beast is near. They waited, still. A wild fangboar emerged, snorting, tusks low. Ranga lunged. A short battle later, Deku absorbed the remains. Skill acquired, enhanced charging impact. Deku chuckled. Well, that could come in handy. Later that afternoon, they arrived at the rocky mouth of the great cavern, where it all began. The air was still cool. The shadows long and familiar. Deku paused, his slime form pulsing softly in the fading light. Inside, faint remnants of Veldora's immense presence still lingered, like echoes caught in stone. The silence was deep here, haunted not by fear, but by memory. He drifted over the same puddles he once feared, gliding past moss-covered walls and bioluminescent fungi. Overhead, the glow, wing moss that once guided him shimmered quietly, unchanged. Deku stopped at the center of the cavern, the place where he first met Veldora, the place where his second life truly began. "Soon I'll free you, my first friend," Deku murmured. There was no voice in response, but in his mind's eye, he could picture it clearly, a massive clawed hand giving him a confident thumbs up. Deku laughed softly, warmth bubbling through his core. "You're as dramatic in my head as you are in real life." He hovered in silence for another moment, then turned away from the shadows and drifted toward the light. Ranga padded beside him, silent and watchful. The past still waited in that cave, but the future was calling. Before the last embers of sunlight had faded, the village of Ayuden moved with purpose. Hobgoblins prepared quietly but efficiently. Their tempest wolves at their sides. Supplies were packed, weapons checked, and watch rotations confirmed. The village buzzed not with panic, but with confidence, built on newfound strength and trust. A few paused to bow respectfully as Deku passed by, perched atop Ranga's back. His slime body glistened softly in the last golden rays. Pulsing with anticipation. At the edge of the village, Ganzu awaited them, a travel pack slung over his shoulder, and a carriage in the background sat surrounded by hobgoblins, awaiting Deku and Ranga. He stepped forward and handed it over with both hands. "Provisions, maps, and all we have gathered for you, honored one," he said. "This should help you trade, or at least earn an audience." Deku dipped forward, mimicking a bow. "Thanks, Ganzu. We'll bring back what we can, knowledge, goods, maybe even allies." The chieftain bowed deeply in return. "Safe travels, Master Deku. May the skies and the land watch over you." With a sharp bark and a leap, Ranga bounded into the trees, his large paws thudding against the earth as they broke into a smooth, powerful run. Deku stayed balanced with ease, riding the pulse of his companion's stride. Behind them, the carriage rolled steadily along the forest path. The forest blurred past them in streaks of shadow and light, birds scattering from the treetops as they passed. The scent of moss and wildflowers filled the air. Deku's thoughts wandered as they rode, toward Dworgen, toward the secrets of this world, toward his strange and growing responsibilities. He wasn't just trying to survive anymore. He was trying to build something worth surviving for. And it all began with understanding this world, and the people who shaped it. "All right, Ranga," Deku said, as the trees began to thin into rocky foothills. "Let's go meet some dwarves." Ranga howled in agreement, his voice ringing across the land, loud, wild, and full of purpose. The gates of Dworgen rose before Th.M. like a titan's fortress, hewn from dark stone and metal, glimmering faintly with veins of magicite that pulsed with ancient power. The steady roar of waterfalls and the rhythmic clang of hammers echoed from within, filling the air with a symphony of industry and life. Deku's slime form shifted anxiously as he stepped off Ranga's back, the cold stone beneath him unfamiliar and solid compared to the soft earth of Ayuden. Around him, dwarves in heavy armor patrolled with watchful eyes, their faces set in proud determination. From the carriage, a small hobgoblin dressed to be presentable steps off from the seat. The hobgoblin's sharp eyes flicked around cautiously as he adjusted his travel cloak. His muscles, still firm from recent evolution, flexed slightly with nervous energy. Deku's gaze met his as the hobgoblin approached. "Master Deku," he said respectfully, "I am Baku. I asked to come along to witness this journey, and to learn what lies beyond our home." Deku smiled gently, the familiar sense of responsibility settling in. "Good to have you, Baku. This place is new to all of us, but together we'll figure it out." The massive gates creaked open, revealing a sprawling city California. RVED into the mountainside, a bustling network of stone streets, forges blazing bright, and dwarves moving with purpose. Deku took a slow breath. "All right, Ranga, let's see what Dworgen has to offer." The massive gates of Dworgen loomed before them, iron-bound and etched with ancient runes that flickered faintly in the fading light. A line of stern-faced dwarven guards stood firm, their broad show. Elders in heavy armor making them look like immovable statues. Deku slid off Ranga's back, his slime form shimmering gently as he stepped forward. Clearing his throat, he addressed the lead guard with calm determination. "I am Deku Tempest, leader of the goblin tribe Ayuden," he said clearly. "I come seeking trade and alliance. My companions and I mean no harm." The guards exchanged skeptical looks, their eyes lingering on the massive wolf standing silently at Deku's side. Before the guards could respond, a loud commotion erupted near the gate. A group of unruly ruffians jeered and shoved their way through the crowd, clearly spoiling for trouble. One of them spotted Deku and barked, "What's this slime and that mutt doing here? Think you can stroll into Dworgen like you own the place?" Deku remained calm, stepping back and motioning toward Ranga. "This," he said, voice steady, "is Ranga, my companion and protector. He's no ordinary wolf. If you want a problem, he'll give you one." At that, Ranga's eyes glowed with fierce loyalty as he growled low and steady, his massive form bristling with controlled power. The ruffians hesitated, the tension thick in the air. The guards moved in swiftly, keeping order as the gates slowly opened. The massive gates of Dworgen creaked open, revealing a line of dwarven guards standing tall and proud behind the threshold. Their faces were etched with years of hardship and pride, their armor gleaming under the city's torchlight. One of the guards stepped forward, folding his arms and eyeing Deku intently. "So, you're the slime leading a goblin to the gates. That's not something we see every day." Another guard grunted, eyeing Deku suspiciously. "We've heard some traders have arrived. Is that you, slime?" A third guard smirked, shifting his weight. "What brings a slime and a goblin to Dworgen? Looking for trouble, or just lost?" Deku's slime form pulsed gently as he met their gazes. "Neither. I'm here seeking trade and alliance, for my people and yours." Ranga stood silently by Deku's side, his keen eyes scanning the guards, muscles tense but controlled. The lead guard's expression softened slightly. "We'll be watching. Dworgen Dosen. Take kindly to those who come with ill intent." Another guard nodded. "Show us you're worth the chance, and we might find common ground." With a slow nod, the gates opened wider, inviting Deku and his companions inside. "Welcome to Dworgen, Deku Tempest. Let's see what you're made of." The heavy gates of Dworgen closed behind Deku and his companions with a solid thud. The city's streets bustled, with dwarves clad in sturdy leather and iron, the clang of hammers ringing from distant forges blending with the chatter of merchants and townsfolk. As Deku moved forward, curiosity and suspicion followed his every step. Whispers floated through the crowd, "A slime among us, what does he want? That goblin looks dangerous." Suddenly, from the edge of a busy market square, a rough hand shot out, grabbing at Deku's slimy form. "Hey, what's this slime doing in Dworgen?" A burly dwarf sneered, shoving Deku hard. Deku recoiled instinctively but did not retaliate. "I'm here in peace. Please, don't." The shove sparked a ripple of chaos. Other dwarves quickly joined, shouting accusations. "A slime attacking dwarves? That's not right. Should be dealt with before trouble starts." Despite Deku's calm pleas and Ranga's low growls warning the crowd, the situation escalated rapidly. A group of guards rushed in, seizing Deku and binding his gelatinous form with reinforced chains humming faintly with anti-magic runes. "You're under arrest for assault and disturbing the peace," barked a stern guard captain. Deku's voice remained steady, but inside, frustration simmered. "I didn't attack anyone. You're making a mistake. Words won't save you now," the captain replied grimly as they marched him toward the city's prison. Behind iron bars, Deku sat silently, pondering the challenges ahead. To win trust here, he'd need more than names and goodwill, he'd need proof of his strength and heart. Outside, the city's pulse continued unabated, indifferent to the slime imprisoned within. The dim light of the jail flickered against cold stone walls as Deku sat quietly in his cell, his translucent slime form pulsing faintly with contained energy. Outside, the muffled clamor of hurried footsteps and worried voices drifted through the corridors. Suddenly, raised voices echoed from the guard station nearby. "Reinforcements need aid. Bandits ambushed the eastern gate. Guards, several injured." One voice called out, strained with urgency. The jail guards exchanged tense looks. One of them paced by Deku's cell, muttering, "Wish that slime was more useful than just a prisoner right now." Deku's core shimmered softly. His mind raced through everything he'd absorbed, herbs, minerals, even the bioluminescent moss from the cave. He focused, Tendrils of his slime body shifted, reaching through the bars, subtly collecting small droplets of water from the damp air and fragments of moss hidden in the cracks of the stone floor. With practiced precision, DEKU began blending and condensing his form, T. He faint glow of alchemical reactions lighting the cell. A soft knock came at the cell door. "What are you doing in there, slime?" the guard asked, suspicious. DEKU's voice was calm but firm. "I can help. I can create potions, healing drafts, antiseptics. If you let me, I can aid your wounded." The guard hesitated, then nodded sharply. "Fine. But if you try anything." Before he could finish, DEKU slid a small vial through the bars. "This is a healing potion. Use it on the injured." Skeptical but desperate, the guards accepted the vial. Minutes later, word came back, wounded soldiers were recovering faster than expected. The guard captain, a gruff dwarf with a scar slicing his cheek, stormed to the cell. "Slime, you might have just saved more lives than you know. Maybe we should rethink your stay here." DEKU's slime form rippled slightly, a faint smile forming in his core. The heavy iron door of DEKU's cell creaked open, its rusted hinges groaning with weight and purpose. "Torchlight Dan." CED across the damp stone walls as armored boots echoed into the corridor. A figure stepped into view, radiating command and authority. His armor was ornate, yet practical, his braided beard gleamed with gold rings. And his piercing eyes swept the room with a seasoned warrior's precision. King Gazel Dwargo, monarch of the armed nation of Dworgen. Behind him followed 3 distinct dwarves, each with an aura of importance. They didn't speak, but they stood behind their king, each wanting something from DEKU. King Gazel's gaze settled squarely on DEKU's glimmering slime form. "So, this is the slime, causing a stir within my gates," he said, his tone cool but composed. "Not the first creature to be jailed, but perhaps the first to heal my guards while in jail." One dwarf stepped forward, stroking his beard. "The potions he crafted worked instantly, Your Majesty. Better than most of our advanced stocks. He's not ordinary." A second dwarf let out a low grunt. "Any slime that can talk, trade, and bring a magic wolf to heal deserves more than a cell. I say we hear him out." The third dwarf nodded thoughtfully, tapping a finger against his chin. "Why is this last dwarf silent?" "Dek, you thought a sweat drop was condensing down his slime form." King Gazel raised a hand. The guards stepped aside, unlocking the door. "Very well. Slime, Rimuru Tempest, is it?" he said, addressing him directly. "You will step forward and speak with us, not as a prisoner, but as a guest, for now." As the cell door opened wide, DEKU could feel the intensity of their scrutiny, but also, beneath it all, a glimmer of interest. The next few words could shape his future in Dworgen. As the heavy cell door swung open, the torchlight illuminated DEKU's glistening form. He slid forward cautiously, the eyes of the king and his companions sharp but unreadable. Just as DEKU crossed the threshold, a nervous voice piped up from behind him. Master DEKU. Should I stay here? They didn't unlock my door." DEKU paused and turned slightly. In the dim light, a small hobgoblin stood at the back of the cell, fidgeting with the hem of his tunic and looking thoroughly overwhelmed by the entire situation. His oversized ears twitched with anxiety. This goblin, an energetic, loyal tagalong with a knack for falling into trouble, had followed DEKU from Ayuden, insisting he could guard the cart and become a real adventurer. The guards glanced at him and shrugged. "That one, he kicked himself in the face trying to show off," one muttered. "Didn't even make it into the city proper before tripping over a bucket," another added, trying to stifle a laugh. DEKU chuckled slightly, the gesture making his slime body quiver. "Yeah, he's with me. Let him out too, if you don't mind." King Gazel raised an eyebrow, then gave a small nod. "He stays for now. Consider it incentive." The goblin blinked. What kind of incentive?" The door slammed shut. DEKU sighed. "Just stay calm. I'll sort it out." The HOB goblin gave a thumbs up with trembling hands. "Why you got it, Master DEKU. I'll hold the fort in here." The king's guards smirked as they led DEKU down the torchlit corridor. Behind him, muffled fumbling and a quiet, "ouch," echoed from the cell. The throne room was vast and echoing, carved straight from the heart of the mountain, its walls inscribed with dwarven runes glowing faintly like veins of molten ore. Torches crackled in iron sconces, casting dancing light across banners, shields, and proud insignias. Deku rested on a sturdy stone pedestal, the makeshift seat hastily prepared by the palace staff. The cool, rough rock wasn't comfortable, but it let him meet King Gazel Dwargo's gaze directly. The king regarded him with a steely look, fingers tapping the armrest of his throne. "So, odd slime, are you here to trade?" Quote. Deku's form pulsed calmly. "Yes, your majesty. My village, Ayuden, has begun to grow. We're building something new, and I came seeking knowledge, goods, and maybe allies." King Gazel stroked his beard, clearly unimpressed yet not dismissive. "Many come to Dwargon for trade," he said. "Few bring a goblin or a giant wolf. Fewer still cause brawls at the gate and end up imprisoned." "I didn't mean for any of that to happen," Deku replied earnestly. "I avoided fighting back. I didn't want to cause harm." King Gazel's gaze narrowed, studying the small, glowing form before him. His fingers steepled thoughtfully beneath his chin. "Yet while imprisoned in our cells, you used potions you made to save hurt dwarves without a second thought," the king repeated. Voice more contemplative than accusatory. A few murmurs passed among the watching dwarves. Deku dipped his form in what resembled a respectful bow. "I couldn't just sit there and let people suffer. That's not who I am." Gazel raised a brow. "No. And what are you, slime?" "I am Deku Tempest. I want to create a city for monsters who wish to be safe, without being under attack or causing harm." Deku's tone and form shimmered, glowing softly as his core condensed into a faint light. The throne room fell silent. King Gazel leaned back, fingers drumming slowly on the stone armrest. His eyes narrowed, not with suspicion, but calculation. "A city for monsters," he repeated, tasting the words like an unfamiliar drink. "You speak like a dreamer." "I am," Deku said simply. "But I'm also someone who's seen what fear and hatred can do. Monsters aren't born evil, they're treated that way. I want to build a place where they don't have to fight just to survive." Across the chamber, an older minister gave a soft grunt. Another scoffed under his breath. Gazel raised a hand, silencing them without a word. "Peace and trade, for all races, that's a fine idea. Noble. But dangerous," the king said, voice low but firm. "What happens when the monsters you welcome turn on you? When their nature overcomes your hopes?" Deku didn't hesitate. "Then I'll stop them. But I'll also give them a reason not to. Trust, safety, a future." King Gazel's eyes flicked toward the side of the room, where Kaijin, Garm, Dord, and Murd quietly stood. The Forge brothers maintained respectful attention, arms crossed or resting on their belts. Kaijin stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I've seen the slime's alchemy. It's no child's trick. If he learns our forge work and we help shape his vision, it might not just be a dream." Dord grunted in agreement. "He's strange, sure, but he saved our men. That counts for something." Garm shrugged one shoulder. "Besides, I've got ideas for smithing tools that might work with whatever the slime brought with him." Murd gave a silent nod, a simple, him. "Why doesn't he talk?" Deku thought, annoyed by the last dwarf for some reason. King Gazel looked back at Deku thoughtfully. "You may stay in the city. Help out with the dwarven smiths, and if you do a good job, you may leave without further incident. I guess I'm working with these dwarves, at least they seem helpful." Deku thought. The roaring flames of the forge cast flickering shadows across the cavernous workshop, filling the air with heat, smoke, and the sharp tang of molten metal. Around the massive anvils and bellows, the four Forge brothers moved with practiced precision, their calloused hands shaping steel with relentless skill. Deku's translucent form shimmered in the fiery glow as he observed, trying to absorb every movement. Every hammer strike. Kaijin clapped a heavy, soot-streaked hand on Deku's glowing shoulder. "All right, slime, you want to help, huh? Show us what you've got. Don't worry, we'll guide you." Deku's slime body rippled confidently. "I may not have hands like you, but I can adapt. Let me help ease the work." Garm grinned, holding up a half-forged blade. "Try making the core lighter, but stronger. Your body's properties might just be what we need." Dord nodded. "And if you can shape tools with your form, it'll speed up the whole process." Murd remained silent but gave a sharp nod of approval. "This stoic dwarf will annoy me," Deku thought with a physical sweat drop condensing down his slime form. With focused determination, Deku began experimenting, absorbing raw ore, manipulating it within his form. testing how his slime could reinforce metals or shape fine edges without cracking. The forge echoed with hammer strikes and bubbling alchemical reactions as Deku's unique skills slowly blended with dwarven craftsmanship. This was no ordinary apprenticeship. It was the start of something new, something forged from fire, friendship, and the will to build a future together. The forge's heat was nearly unbearable, but Deku's slime form shimmered steadily beside the dwarven brothers as they presented their latest attempt, a gleaming sword, forged with all their skill and care. Kaijin held the blade up to the flickering torchlight. We made this one 10,000 times stronger than usual. It should be nearly indestructible. Garm grunted. But trying to make more copies has been a nightmare. None of the others hold up, crack or dull in no time. Just then, the heavy clang of boots echoed through the workshop. Vesta strode in, his white cloak billowing behind him, glasses catching the glow of the forge fires. He eyed the sword with a dismissive smirk. Is this the best you dwarves can manage? Pathetic. Kaijin's brow furrowed. Vesta, we're working with the best techniques we know. Best techniques? Vesta interrupted, waving a hand. Your methods are outdated and primitive. No wonder you can't replicate a blade of such caliber. Deku's form pulsed, sensing the tension rise. Vesta stepped forward and tapped the sword's edge lightly with a gloved finger. If you want true perfection, you need innovation, not brute strength and tradition. Kaijin's voice was firm. We value tradition and skill, that's what built Dworgen. Vesta laughed coldly, shaking his head as he strode toward the forge's exit. And that's exactly why you'll never reach perfection. His cloak billowed behind him as he vanished through the doorway, leaving behind a heavy silence and simmering tension. The forge grew quiet, the air thick with anticipation as Deku's glowing form shifted closer to the gleaming blade resting on the anvil. I'll give it a try, Deku said, voice steady but calm. His slime body rippled, translucent tendrils extending like delicate fingers toward the sword. Slowly, the shimmering slime began to absorb the metal surface, melding with it, flowing through the intricate edge and core. A faint blue glow pulsed from within Deku's form as the alchemical process took hold. Around the workshop, the Forge brothers watched with a mixture of awe and skepticism. Within moments, Deku's form pulsed brightly before releasing a soft shimmer, and where the original sword lay, now stood a similar copy down to the design on the hilt. Kaijin's eyes widened in disbelief. He did it, he duplicated the blade. Garm gave a low whistle. This could change everything. Murd nodded with wide eyes. This dwarf. Deku's thoughts bubbled into semi-rage, but that died when he stared face to face with the smiling face of Kaijin. Can you do more, slime? Kaijin asked. Deku nodded slowly, returning the grin with his version, well, a slime version of a smile. Later, in the dim glow of a lively tavern, the Forge brothers led Deku, joking and teasing him as the pile of duplicated swords lay behind them, shining like a promise of new possibilities. Deku found himself sitting awkwardly in the lap of one of the barmaids, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and comfort. He wished for a better form to feel less out of place. So, hick, this idea of yours. Dord slurred, his face flushed as he leaned in across the table, building a city for monsters. You really think it'll work? Before Deku could answer, a loud voice cut through the warm din of the tavern. Where is Kaijin? Vesta's voice boomed as he strode in, flanked by his loyal supporters. You, here drinking off your spare time while you could finish the order of swords I requested, Vesta continued, standing face to face with Kaijin, who didn't bother rising, still finishing his mug of ale. Kaijin took a slow, deliberate sip, then set the mug down with a soft thud. Vesta, Kaijin said steadily, meeting Vesta's sharp gaze, we finished the order and delivered them to the capital, with receipts and a signed notice from the guard. Vesta's smug grin faltered, turning into a pale grimace. How? Vesta questioned. Before he could get an answer, he stormed off from the bar, leaving behind the smug, smiling faces of the Dwarven brothers behind. That guy needs a chill pill, Deku thought, staring back at the smiling faces of the Dwarven Forge brothers. So Slime Booty, if the king goes for it, would you be interested in hiring our brothers for your city? Kaijin asks, staring face to face with Deku. Huh, Deku thought, his slime form contorting to a shocked expression. As the first light of dawn spilt through the window, it brushed against Deku's face, coaxing him awake. The soft warmth contrasted with the cool stone walls of the guest room King Gazel had graciously allowed him to use during his stay in Dworgen. At the foot of the bed, Ranga sat upright, tail spinning in lazy, helicopter-like circles. Each flick sent small whirlwinds skittering across the floor, lifting loose papers into the air like startled birds. Master awakes. Ranga barked cheerfully. I have a notice from the hobgoblins. They request your return to Ayuden as soon as possible. DEKU rubbed the sleep from his eyes, watching another flurry of papers twirl past his face. Tell Ganzu to take care of running things until I get back, he said, his tone mild, though a trace of annoyance slipped through at the thought that he hadn't done this before leaving for Dworgen. I shall pass on Master's message to your loyal ones in Ayuden, Ranga declared proudly, before vanishing into his own shadow in a blink. The room fell still again, save for the last drifting sheet of parchment spiraling to the floor. The shadows stretched long in the early morning light of Ayuden as Ranga emerged from the ground, his massive wolf form casting a cool, dark ripple across the village square. Hobgoblins paused in their work, bowing respectfully. Master sends his words, Ranga announced, his tail swishing proudly. Ganzu will lead until Master returns. Ganzu, tall for a hobgoblin, with a steady gaze and broad shoulders, stepped forward, arms crossed. I'll make sure things run smoothly, Ranga. Tell the boss not to worry, we'll keep Ayuden standing strong. Several younger hobgoblins muttered excitedly among themselves, their eyes shining with pride at the mention of DEKU's name. Ranga gave a satisfied huff. Good. If anyone causes trouble, I will know. His golden eyes gleamed in a way that made more than one goblin straighten their posture. With that, Ranga dipped back into his shadow, leaving a soft ripple in the dirt where he had stood. The grand audience chamber of Dworgen was silent save for the faint echo of armored guards shifting their stances. Golden light streamed through the tall windows, illuminating King Gazel Dworgo upon his throne, his sharp gaze fixed on the small, unassuming figure before him. DEKU bowed politely, his slime form dipping slightly. You requested my presence, Your Majesty. Gazel studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I did. You've made quite an impression since arriving in my city, Slime. You've repaired a failing forge order, drawn the loyalty of some of my finest craftsmen, and, according to my scouts, you have the strength to rival even my royal guard. DEKU stayed silent, unsure if this was praise or a warning. The king rose from his throne, each step forward resonating on the marble floor. Why have you come to Dworgen? Truly. His eyes narrowed slightly. Do not mistake me, your actions so far have been beneficial. But I am no fool. Power such as yours is rarely without ambition. DEKU hesitated, then spoke honestly. I don't want your throne or your land. My goal is to build a home, a safe place for monsters, where they don't have to fear humans or other nations. That's all. Gazel's gaze lingered on him, measuring. Finally, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. HMPH. I've heard many promises from those with strength. Few mean them. Time will tell which you are, Slime. The tension eased slightly as the king stepped back toward his throne. You may remain in my city until your business here is done. But understand this, should your path turn against mine, I will be the one to end it. DEKU nodded slowly. Fair enough. As he left the chamber, DEKU could still feel the weight of the king's eyes on his back, not hostile, but watchful. Later in Dworgen, DEKU rode atop Ranga, the Tempestwolf's easy stride carrying them through the bustling stone streets. Merchants hawked their wares, dwarves argued over prices, and the air smelled of hot metal and spiced ale. DEKU was quietly enjoying the view, feeling oddly at home in the ordered chaos. From the shadowed mouth of an alley, a figure stepped out, Vesta. Clad in his polished crimson robes, the gold trim catching the sunlight. Behind him came 4 of his most loyal followers, each carrying small, crudely made glass bottles filled with murky green liquid. They weren't real globules, just cheap dye and thickened water. But in the right light, and to the untrained eye, they looked like some strange fluid pulled straight from a slime's body. Remember, Vesta said in a low voice, his expression set in a mask of authority, make it look natural. Spill it near the market. Let them see what happens when this creature mingles with our trade. Whispers will do the rest. The supporters nodded, slipping into the crowd like hunters. Vesta stayed in the shadows a moment longer, watching Ranga carry Deku past. His lips curled in a faint smirk. Let's see how the king reacts when the people believe the slime is poisoning our city's economy, and perhaps more. The marketplace of Dworgen was alive with the clatter of trade and the chatter of deals being made. Deku slid down from Ranga's back to get a better look at the stalls. Racks of armor gleamed beside barrels of fresh produce, while smiths shouted over the clang of their forges. It was then that the first shout rang out. "Oi! What's this filth?" A merchant bellowed, holding up a broken bottle, its thick green contents oozing across the cobblestones. "Tea!" The crowd recoiled as the strange liquid seeped between the cracks, glinting unnaturally in the light. A few children gasped and pointed, others screamed and backed away. "It's from the slime," a voice in the crowd cried. "I saw it earlier. Dripping off him." Murmurs surged through the marketplace like wildfire. "Poisons our streets. Corrupting our goods. Dangerous to let him roam." Deku's eyes widened as more shouts erupted. Several more bottles, accidentally, smashed near fruit stands and armor racks, staining goods with the fake green slime. Merchants began throwing cloth over their wares. Glaring suspiciously in Deku's direction. Ranga stepped forward protectively, growling low at anyone who got too close. "I didn't do this," Deku said firmly, trying to be heard over the noise. "It's not me." But the damage was done. Guards were already pushing through the crowd, their captain glancing between the spilled liquid and Deku with narrowed eyes. "By order of King Gazel," the captain announced. "You are to come with us for questioning." Ranga bristled, but Deku placed a calming tendril on his fur. "It's fine. Let's hear what the king has to say." The murmurs didn't stop as Deku was led away. The throne room of Dworgen was a vast chamber of polished stone and gold inlay, the banners of the Dwarven kingdom hanging proudly from the high walls. The heavy double doors closed behind Deku and Ranga with a deep thud that echoed through the hall. King Gazel sat upon his throne, posture straight, eyes sharp as steel. The weight of his gaze alone was enough to make the air feel heavy. To his right stood Kaijin, arms folded, face tense. To his left, Vesta, his expression one of barely concealed triumph, lips curved into a smug half-smile. "Midoriya of Ayuden," Gazel began, voice deep and measured. "You have been a guest in my city. I allowed you to trade freely and forge bonds with my craftsmen. Yet now, there are troubling whispers in the streets." Deku stood firm. "I've heard the rumors, Your Majesty. They're not true." Vesta stepped forward, bowing slightly toward the king, though his eyes were locked on Deku. "With respect, my king, multiple witnesses saw the strange green substance, slime residue, corrupting goods in the marketplace. Surely it cannot be a coincidence." Gazel's gaze didn't shift from Deku. "Whether these rumors are true or falsehood, they carry weight. My people fear what they do not understand, and fear breeds unrest." He rose from the throne, the motion commanding the attention of every guard in the room. "I have seen power corrupt. I have seen leaders speak of peace while their strength hides the blade in their other hand." He stepped closer. Gazel's sharp eyes flickered briefly toward Vesta. Just long enough to notice the faint green smudges on the man's fingertips before they disappeared into his coat pockets. For a heartbeat, the king's expression hardened. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by that same unreadable mask of authority. "Power such as yours, Midoriya, invites both trust and fear," Gazel said, returning his focus to Deku. "And right now, fear has the louder voice." Deku's jaw tightened. "If I've caused your people worry, I'll do what I can to make it right. But I didn't harm anyone or their goods. I came here to work with you, not against you." Vesta gave a quiet hum of skepticism. He sound carrying just enough to be heard. Intentions are meaningless when the damage is already done. Kaijin stepped forward, eyes blazing. "And lies do even more damage. This reeks of a setup, and you know it." "Enough." Gazel's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "The truth will reveal itself in time, but until it does, Midoriya of Ayuden, you will leave Dworgen. My city cannot road the unrest your presence stirs, however unearned it may be." Vesta's smug smile returned, but Deku didn't rise to it. He simply bowed. "I understand. But when I return, I'll bring proof of my intentions." Gazel's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer, thoughtful, almost reluctant, before he gestured to the guards. "See him to the gates." As Deku turned to leave, Ranga's tail bristled, his eyes locking on Vesta. The wolf's low growl rumbled through the throne room, making Vesta's supporters flinch. Before Deku reached the exit of the castle, he heard a sound smack come from behind him. Deku turned to see Kaijin's arms stretched out, his fist clenched. Below on the floor, Vesta sat nursing a forming bruise on his face. The entire throne room froze in an instant. Vesta's smug grin vanished, replaced by a stunned glare as he glared up at Kaijin. Kaijin's gaze was fierce and unyielding, his voice low but filled with warning. "Don't mistake my loyalty, Vesta. We stand for Dworgen, and we stand against those who would deceive it." Vesta spat out a curse, wincing at the bruise forming on his cheek. "You'll regret this." King Gazel's stern eyes swept over the scene, then rested on Kaijin. "Enough," he commanded, his voice brokering no argument. "This palace is no place for petty violence. But know this, disloyalty will not be tolerated." Kaijin nodded once, then turned to follow Deku without another word. Ranga growled softly, stepping protectively closer to Deku as they made their way toward the exit, leaving behind a stunned and simmering Vesta. "Boys, you showed loyalty, but you." Gazel turned to stare at Vesta, who was standing, rubbing his cheek. "Onward you go, my allies, take care of this Deku Tempest, his dream is possible." Sitting atop Ranga's broad, shadowy back, Deku gazed ahead as the winding path through the dense forest stretched before them. Behind them trailed the former Dworgen blacksmiths, Kaijin, Garm, Dord, and even the stoic Murd, now steadfast allies who had chosen to follow Deku's vision beyond the stone walls of Dworgen. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, alive with the soft rustling of leaves and distant bird calls. The Forge brothers carried their tools and weapons, ready for whatever lay ahead. The journey to expand Ayudan's influence had begun. "We leave behind old grudges and doubts," Deku said quietly, his glowing form pulsing with resolve. "Out there, we'll build a new future. Together." Kaijin nodded, wiping soot from his hands. No more whispers, no more court politics. Just honest work and trust." Garm grinned, hefting a hammer over his shoulder. "Besides, I'm curious to see what kind of monsters live beyond the mountains." Dord chuckled, stumbling slightly before steadying himself. Quote, "And where the ale might flow freer than in that stuffy palace tavern." Murd, silent as ever, gave a subtle nod, his approval speaking volumes. Ranga let out a low growl, as if acknowledging the weight of the journey ahead. With the sun climbing higher, the caravan set off, leaving behind the city walls and the doubts within. Ahead lay forests, monsters, and challenges, but with new bonds forged stronger than steel. Deku's dream of a haven for monsters was one step closer to reality. "So," Kaijin began, only to stop when ahead he spotted an injured deer hobbling across their path. Coming out from the brush were the hobgoblins from Ayudan, far from the settlement, but they sat on top of their own Tempest wolves. The hobgoblins dismounted from their Tempest wolves, their eyes sharp yet respectful as they approached Deku and the group. "Master Deku," their leader called out, a gruff but loyal tone in his voice. "We were sent to scout the forest edge and ensure no threats are creeping toward Ayudan." Deku's glowing form pulsed softly with appreciation. "Good work. The safety of our people is the foundation of our future." Kaijin stepped forward, examining the hobgoblins' weapons with a keen eye. "Well-maintained steel, your clan knows the value of a good blade." Garm chuckled. "Looks like you'll fit in just fine with us dwarves." Dord gave a hearty laugh. "And don't forget the ale, you'll need it after a long day's hunt." Murd simply nodded, his quiet approval unmistakable. The injured deer, still limping nearby, twitched an ear and eyed the group warily. One of the hobgoblins cast a sympathetic glance at the creature. "It's barely alive, should we put it out of its misery or let nature take its course?" Deku's slime form shimmered thoughtfully. "Let me handle it." With a soft ripple, Deku extended a gentle translucent tendril toward the deer, carefully touching its wound. The faint glow of his healing power spread, easing the creature's pain. The deer blinked, then slowly steadied itself, taking a cautious step forward before disappearing into the underbrush. The hobgoblins exchanged surprised looks. "You are different from what we expected, Master Deku." Deku smiled, well, his slime form mimicked a smile, and nodded. "We all have the power to protect and create. Together, we can build a home where no one has to suffer needlessly." The company resumed their march. The bonds between them strengthened by trust, hope, and the shared road ahead. Ayudan's gate stood wide open, welcoming Deku and the company back with an air of cautious optimism. The wooden doors, reinforced with iron bands, creaked softly as they swung on their hinges. The scent of fresh pine and earth mingled with the faint smoke rising from distant chimneys. Villagers paused their daily tasks, eyes turning toward the procession, Deku leading, the dwarven Forge brothers walking with steady confidence, and the hobgoblin hunting party atop their imposing Tempest wolves bringing a quiet but fierce presence. As they passed through the gates, a few children scurried forward, their faces alight with curiosity and awe at the glowing slime and his unusual companions. Kaijin smiled warmly at the sight. Looks like the word's spreading. Your name carries weight here, slime. Garm chuckled, patting one of the hobgoblins on the back. And for good reason. Dord's laughter echoed as he ruffled a young villager's hair. They'll grow up knowing what strength and friendship mean. Murd's quiet nod said it all, respect for the unity forming under Deku's vision. Deku's form pulsed softly, absorbing the mixture of hope and wariness in the air. At the center of the village, Ganzu awaited with a group of elders, their faces lined with both worry and hope. Welcome back, Master Deku, Ganzu greeted, bowing respectfully. The city feels different, safer, somehow, one elder murmured. Deku gave a gentle glow. That's because we're not just a city anymore. We're a home. And every home grows stronger with unity. The gates closed slowly behind them, sealing the promise of new beginnings and the challenges still to come. When nightfall cloaked the city of monsters in deep shadows, Deku stirred from his rest. His glowing form pulsing softly in the darkness. His senses, honed beyond mere instinct, fixated on a singular point. Not the faint trickle of malice, but a sharp, calculated pulse of conscious energy. Something was watching, waiting. The air grew heavy with tension as Deku's slime body rippled, his awareness expanding, ready to face whatever threat lurked beyond the walls of Ayuden. Ranga, Deku whispered to the shadows. From the cloaked shadows Ranga's form rippled away from the wall. Ranga's deep, low growl resonated through the silence as he emerged, muscle coiled and eyes glinting with alertness. The Tempest Wolf's fur bristled in the cool night air, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the darkness ahead. Deku's glowing core pulsed rhythmically. Stay close. Whatever this is, it's no ordinary threat. Together, they moved toward the city's edge, where shadows twisted unnaturally among the trees, and the faint glimmer of conscious intent rippled like a storm beneath the quiet night. As they reached where the energy was condensed, sitting huddling around the dying embers of a fire was a group of horned creatures Deku had never seen before. Their silhouettes flickered in the weak light, revealing twisted horns curling like gnarled branches, sharp eyes reflecting the dying flames. Their skin was a mottled gray, rough like cracked stone, and their fingers ended in jagged claws. Deku's form pulsed softly, curiosity mixing with caution. Who are you? He asked, his voice calm but firm. One of the horned figures rose slowly, stepping into the firelight. His eyes glimmered with wary intelligence. We are ogres and we are here to speak with the goblin chieftain. Another ogre pipes up, we require aid, food and supplies for our travels. Ret, earn during the first light and then we can talk then. Deku said, earning nods from the ogres who had faded into the shadows from where they came. Sitting in the Ayuden hobgoblin chieftain's hut, Deku rested comfortably atop a finely woven pillow, its bright threads a gift from the new goblin artisans who now took pride in their craft. The warm, flickering light from the fire pit cast soft shadows across the hut's walls, illuminating shelves lined with tools, weapons, and preserved foods, a testament to how far Ayuden had come since its humble beginnings. Surrounding him were his loyal hobgoblins, each seated in a respectful circle. Their once ragged forms were now clad in well-made leather armor, their posture straight, their eyes bright with loyalty and pride. Ranga lay to Deku's right, his massive head resting on his paws, ears twitching occasionally as if catching sounds no one else could hear. The atmosphere was quiet but charged with anticipation. The earlier encounter with the horned strangers still lingered in everyone's minds. Deku's form pulsed softly, the rhythm calm yet deliberate. They're strong, Deku said finally, his voice even. Stronger than most who've come here. If their words are true, they could be a great asset to Ayuden. Ganzu mused, rubbing his chin. But strength alone does not make a friend. They carry wounds, both on their bodies and in their hearts. I saw it in their eyes. Kota leaned forward, his young voice eager. Then shouldn't we help them? If they're as strong as you say, Chief, they could help protect the village. Deku crossed his arms, the firelight catching the polished edge of his shoulder guard. Or turn against us if we trust them too easily. Deku let the voices around him fade into the background for a moment, his mind replaying the sharp, disciplined movements of the horned warriors. They were trained, not just strong. And their leader's gaze, it had been the gaze of someone who had lost much, yet refused to fall. We'll offer them shelter, Deku said at last, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Food, rest, and the safety of our walls. But we'll also watch them. Not as enemies, but as potential allies who have yet to decide their path. Ranga's tail thumped once against the floor. If they bring harm, I will know before they act, he rumbled. A faint ripple of tension eased through the room. The decision was made. Then it's settled, Ganzu said with a nod. We prepare for guests. As the hobgoblins moved to carry out their duties, Deku's gaze shifted toward the darkened doorway. Somewhere out there, the horned strangers were waiting. And the night was far from over. Deku's core pulsed faintly as he focused, his awareness spreading through the familiar warmth of the village. Outside, the rhythmic clang of hammers and the hiss of quenching metal painted a picture of progress. The dwarves, gruff voices mixed with the hobgoblins, deeper tones, their combined efforts turning the CE crude forge into something worthy of a true city. Morning already, huh? Deku said, his voice carrying a note of calm amusement. Feels like I only just closed my eyes. Ranga's ears twitched. The sun rises early here, master. And, there is movement beyond the walls. The strangers from last night, they have returned. That pulled Deku's attention sharply. And, they approach openly. No weapons drawn, Ranga reported. Though his fur bristled ever so slightly. But they carry the air of warriors. Deku's form rippled slightly, the morning light filtering into the hut through the flap. Then let's greet them properly. By the time he emerged, the village was already gathering near the gate. The dwarves had set down their tools, the hobgoblins standing in silent readiness. Beyond the threshold of Ayuden, the horned figures stepped into view, tall, imposing, and with eyes sharp as the steel they carried. We welcome the ogre clan to Ayuden, one of the many goblins at the gates said, bowing to the ogres who entered with wide eyes and surprised faces. The tallest among them, a broad-shouldered warrior with crimson hair tied back in a rough knot, stepped forward. His hand rested loosely on the hilt of a curved blade. But it was his gaze, steady, measuring, that weighed on the crowd. We came seeking the one called Deku. He met us last night and swore to meet us. He said, his voice deep and even, carrying the calm of someone used to command. Ranga padded forward with silent, steady grace, the crowd parting instinctively as the Tempest Wolf approached the gate. Perched atop his companion, Deku's gaze met the crimson-haired ogre's without flinching. The ogre's eyes narrowed slightly, studying both slime and wolf. So, it is true, you are no normal slime. I am Deku, he said. His voice calm yet carrying enough weight to be heard by all. And I keep my word. You sought answers. You'll have them. A ripple of murmurs passed through the ogres behind the leader, some skeptical, others intrigued. The crimson-haired warrior tilted his head, as though reassessing the figure before him. Then perhaps, the ogre said, we may yet speak as equals. Deku gave a faint ripple of amusement. In Ayuden, all who come with open hands are equals. Follow me, and we'll talk somewhere warmer than the gates. Ranga turned, his tail flicking, and the ogres stepped inside the city for the first time. Their sharp eyes scanning every forge, every wall, and every villager as if weighing the measure of this place. Follow me to the chieftain's hut, where we can help you on your way with what you requested last night. Deku said, leading the ogres towards the chieftain's hut. The hobgoblins and villagers parted respectfully as Deku guided the ogres through the winding streets of Ayuden. Children peeked from behind crates and barrels, whispering excitedly at the sight of the towering newcomers. The dwarves paused at their forges, eyes narrowing in curiosity but relaxing as He recognized Deku's calm presence keeping everything in order. Inside the chieftain's hut, the warmth of the fire pit contrasted sharply with the crisp morning outside. Deku settled onto a woven pillow, Ranga folding neatly beside him, and gestured for the ogres to take seats, or as much of a seat as one could find in a space built for smaller forms. The crimson-haired leader stepped forward first, clearing his throat. "We may have lied last night about our intention," he admitted, his voice low but steady. "We came here to scout this place after an up-and-coming calamity ravaged our homeland, slaughtered our people, burned our homes, and drove us into the wilds. We heard a rumor that the calamity came from the forest. This forest in particular." The firelight flickered across the scar at his jaw, each word tightening the air in the hut. The other ogres stood silent, their eyes hard with grief and anger. Deku's form stilled, the faint glow from his body reflecting in their eyes. "And you believe this calamity still moves?" The crimson-haired ogre's gaze was unyielding. "We don't believe it, Slime, we know. And if we're right, it won't stop until this forest, your people, and this city of yours are nothing but ash and bone. It's coming back here." Deku asked, a shiver of tension coming through his slime core that spread throughout his form. "We suspect," the older ogre said, stroking his beard, his eyes narrowing in thought. "It will move as it did before, consuming, multiplying, leaving nothing but husks in its wake. If we follow the trail of slaughter far enough, all signs lead here." Silence settled over the hut, broken only by the faint crackle of the fire. Outside, the muffled sounds of Ayudan's morning life, hammer strikes, children's laughter, seemed suddenly fragile, distant. Deku's gaze shifted from the crimson-haired leader to the others. He could see the exhaustion in their stance, the grief in the set of their jaws, and the flicker of something else. Not just a warning. Plea. Ranga's hackles rose, his low growl rumbling through the floor. "Master," he said quietly, "if this calamity comes, the village will not be ready." Deku straightened. "Then we prepare," he said. Voice firm despite the unease curling inside him. "And we find this calamity before it finds us." "Where is this calamity?" Deku asks, his core shining a glow of energy. It fills his insides until his outside glows a slight green, giving his form slight freckles. "Currently, we have no idea," the female ogre admitted, lowering her eyes for the first time. She raised her long-sleeved kimono to her lips. Voice quiet but firm. "But we will not find it alone. We could use your help, to learn how long we have left." The fire popped in the silence that followed. Outside, Ayudan carried on, unaware that somewhere far beyond the tree line, a calamity was moving ever closer, carrying disaster in its wake. "Ranga," Deku said, his voice calm from the shadows behind him. The Tempest Wolf slipped through the darkness, emerging at his side. "Master," Ranga replied simply. "Head out. Use the shadows, find this calamity and report back. Stay safe, my friend," Deku said simply. A low wolf huff echoed through Deku's slime form, warm air brushing against it, a silent promise from Ranga that he would. The air was thick with the stink of blood and rotting flesh. In the moonlight, the scattered remnants of a battlefield stretched for miles. The bodies of fallen orcs lay in heaps, their weapons rusting in their grip. The survivors knelt in the muck, their eyes glazed, bellies bloated from what they had been forced to consume. Among them, one figure remained upright. A massive orc, his armor dented and spattered with gore, stared down at his trembling hands. His body screamed for rest. Yet hunger clawed at his insides, never satisfied. A voice drifted from the shadows. Smooth, mocking, almost amused. My, the great orc army has seen better days. The darkness stepped a figure dressed in decadent robes, a porcelain mask hiding his face. His smile could be heard even if it couldn't be seen. "Who are you?" the orc asked, spitting up blood, his hand covered in the thick, viscous color of deep red. "I am a friend," the stranger said, bowing theatrically. "And you are the one I've been searching for." The orc straightened, confusion dulling into suspicion. "What do you want?" "To grant you power," the stranger purred. "Your hunger, your pain. They're nothing compared to what you could become. I will give you a name. And with it, strength to devour all who stand in your way." The orc hesitated, his mind a fog of exhaustion and starvation. But the offer was like a spark in the darkness, and he could not ignore it. Slowly, he knelt. The stranger's gloved hand touched the orc's forehead. "From this day forth, you shall be called Geld. End of flashback equals. Morning sunlight spilled across Ayudan's square, catching on the Arvu faces of the 6 ogres who stood before Izuku. Their armor was battered, their weapons worn, but their eyes burned with pride and hope. Izuku, sitting cross-legged in his slime form atop a smooth boulder, looked over each of them. He could feel the weight of the moment. Names were more than just sounds in this world, they were promises, bonds, power. "All right," he said, voice carrying in the still air. "From this day on, you're not just ogres, you're part of this village. My family." One by one, he named them. Benimaru, Shuna, Hikuro, Shien, Kijin, Soe. With each name, magicules poured from DEKU, reshaping them into graceful, powerful beings. The strain pulled at his core until his vision darkened, and then, nothing. Across the land, far from Ayuden, a hulking figure stirred. The named orc rose to his feet, his eyes blazing with hunger, his new army shuffling in his shadow. The disaster had a name. One task remained. He had to feed. Ma. The whisper slithered through the void, distant yet urgent, pulling at Izuku's drifting consciousness. He stirred, his awareness slowly piecing itself back together. The darkness around him felt heavy, but familiar, the in-between place he always seemed to end up after pushing his magic too far. "Master," the voice was clearer now. Deep. Loyal. Deku's eyes opened, or at least, the slime equivalent of opening eyes. And he blinked into the gentle light of morning. The sounds of Ayuden were faint in the distance. "Ranga," Deku thought groggily. "Yes, master." The great wolf's mental voice carried a low, cautious rumble. "I have news. The orc, the one leading their horde, is on the move. His target is a lizardman village. At their pace, they will reach it in a matter of days." Izuku's form stilled, the lingering warmth from yesterday's naming ceremony cooling into a hard edge of resolve. The ogres had just found a home. Now, someone was already threatening another. And if the orc was bold enough to target the lizardmen, Ayuden might be next. The morning sun bathed Ayuden in soft light, casting long shadows across the village streets. Deku's slime form moved with deliberate grace, gliding silently toward the training grounds where the ogres had gathered after the naming ceremony. He felt it first, a subtle shift in their energy. A resonance, stronger than before, more focused, like the faint heartbeat of a volcano stirring beneath the surface. The 6 ogres stood before him, their bodies taller, their muscles leaner, their eyes sharper. Something intangible had changed. They no longer carried the weight of simple ogres. The naming had awoken something ancient and potent within them. "We are no longer ogres. We are your swords, we are Kaijin." Benimaru stepped forward, flexing his hands. Gone were the rough, jagged claws of his former ogre form. In their place were smooth, human-like fingers, tipped with a subtle hardness that hinted at latent power. Small, stylized horns curved gently from his head. A far cry from the brutal protrusions of his past life. Shuna followed, her movements fluid and graceful, her horned silhouette now elegant rather than imposing. Her eyes shone with quiet confidence. And the faint shimmer of magical resonance pulsed around her, a protective aura that seemed to cradle the very ground she walked upon. Hikuro and Shien mirrored Benimaru and Shuna's transformation. Their bodies were lean, balanced, and honed for precision, their horns now ornamental and symbolic, not monstrous. Each exhaled a controlled energy that Deku could sense with ease. Finally, Kijin and Soe stepped forward, shadows stretching and coiling around them like living extensions of their forms. Even in their subtle motions, it was clear, speed, stealth, and deadly grace now defined them. Their former ogre bulk had shifted into agile, warrior-like physiques, horns stylized into sleek crests atop their heads, and their gazes were sharp, calculating, and unwavering. Deku's core glowed, a soft, steady light pulsing outward. "Yes, this is what I hoped for. You've shed the limitations of your past forms. You are my allies now, not just warriors, but extensions of our will, protectors of Ayuden." The sun hung low over the dense forest, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. The lizardman village lay nestled in a clearing, smoke curling lazily from small huts and the soft chatter of its inhabitants drifting across the square. Life here had always been simple, hunting, gathering, training, and teaching the young. But that peace was about to shatter. Sitting hidden in the shadows was Ranga. Ranga's ears twitched, nostrils flaring as he picked up the scent of something unnatural. His massive form pressed low to the forest floor, muscles coiled like springs. Every instinct screamed caution, every sense attuned to the approaching threat. Master. Ranga thought, his mental tether connects to his master's mind. Deku's slime form rippled in response, his glowing core pulsing faintly as he reached out with his awareness. I'm here, Ranga. What do you sense? Ranga's mental voice came, low and urgent. Something big, and wrong. Moving fast, like a storm over the treetops. It smells of blood, decay, and hunger. Deku's core brightened slightly, the usual calm determination settling over him. Then we stay hidden for now. Let me see exactly what we're dealing with before making a move. The wolf's tail twitched, ears pinned slightly back as he scanned the clearing. There, by the village center. A young lizard man, training with a spear. Children nearby, unaware. Deku's form shimmered with a quiet resolve. We protect them. Whoever or whatever this is, they won't touch a single villager on my watch. The forest around them stirred. Leaves rustled unnaturally. From the shadows, faint shapes moved, the first signs of the approaching threat. Ranga's hackles rose, a low growl vibrating through Deku's mental link. They're coming. Fast. And there's more than one. We move fast. I need you at my side, Ranga, so I can see what's coming. Deku muttered. From the shadows, Ranga's massive form stepped forward, hackles raised, eyes sharp with understanding. Without hesitation, Deku's slime form slid across the chieftain's floor and merged seamlessly atop Ranga's back. Together, they became one, a fluid, shadowed silhouette weaving through the village. We will follow, Master Deku, the newly evolved Kaijin chorused, their voices steady, disciplined. As Deku and Ranga vanished into the trees, the Kaijin wasted no time. They rallied the remaining able-bodied hobgoblins, there. Tempest Wolf's hackles rising, ears twitching as whines and stomps echoed across the square. Weapons were readied, formations set, and hearts steeled. Ayudan's finest were moving out, every muscle, claw, and horn aware of their purpose, intercept the approaching disaster before it could reach the unsuspecting Lizardman village. Night fell, it was a hushed whisper. Candles flickered, the shadows of scaled warriors swaying across the cavern walls. In the center of the chamber knelt a young lizard man, his scales a brighter green than most, his jaw set with quiet determination. The young lizard man's voice carried a raw edge of urgency, but his bow remained respectful. Father, allow me and my allies to deal with these targets coming to our homeland. The chieftain's golden eyes, rimmed with age, narrowed as he studied his son. His clawed hand tapped against the stone armrest, each click echoing in the chamber. Abiru, you burn with courage. But courage alone does not win wars, the chief rumbled. We do not yet know the full strength of these foes. To send you would be reckless. Abiru's jaw tightened, his tail lashing against the floor. But to wait is to invite slaughter. If we remain idle, the foes coming to our homeland are many and led by a creature unlike anything that has been seen on our shores. Silence. The chief's roar shook the cavern, rattling stone and quelling every hiss and shuffle of the guards. The very torches trembled in their sconces. Abiru flinched but did not bow his head further. His fists pressed harder to the stone floor. Claws scraping. You will not speak so carelessly of despair before your kin. The chieftain thundered, his scales gleaming gold beneath the firelight. To name the shadow that stalks our swamps, to spread fear before we are certain, it is poison to our people. The chamber held its breath. Even the guards, disciplined and silent, dared not look up. Abiru's chest heaved, but his voice, when it came, was lower. Steadier. Then let me hunt for certainty, father. If I return with proof, with knowledge of this disaster, then the tribe will have resolve, not poison. The old chief's gaze lingered on his son. Hard as carved obsidian. His roar had silenced the chamber, but Abiru's words struck deep, rekindling the unease that gnawed at every scaled warrior in the swamp. You would risk everything for your kin, the chief said at last, his voice dropping from thunder to gravel. Perhaps that is where we differ. Abiru dared to raise his eyes. Or perhaps that is why I must go. The two locked gazes in silence, father and son, tradition and ambition, until the very air of the cavern seemed to crackle with tension. Until a howl reaches the lizardmen, a howl of a wolf, a new foe, or ally. The howl rolled across the swamp like a storm-given voice. Deep, commanding, it resonated through stone and scale alike, sending a shiver down every lizardman's spine. Warriors glanced at one another. hands tightening around their spears. Whispers broke the stillness. A direwolf. No, greater. It sounded, alive with power. The chief rose slowly from his stone throne, his golden eyes fixed on the cavern mouth as though he could pierce the night itself. His chest rose and fell, but his voice carried firm despite the unease. Steady yourselves. If this cry belongs to a foe, we will face it as lizardmen. If it belongs to something else, his gaze cut toward Abiru, sharp as a blade, we will know soon enough. Abiru, however, did not flinch at the sound. His heart thudded faster, not with fear, but recognition of opportunity. The cry was no wild beast's, it carried intent, almost command, as though calling out to the swamp itself. His tail lashed once more, but his voice was calm. Father. Whether enemy or ally, something has come. Denying action now is no longer possible. The chief's jaw tightened. Around them, the guards waited, tension coiling like a drawn bowstring. And then, another sound cut through the swamp. Heavy footfalls, deliberate and steady, drawing closer. Not the chaos of a monster's charge, but the measured stride of someone approaching with purpose. From the mouth of the cavern emerged a wolf unlike anything the lizardmen had seen before. Its fur was a stormy black, its mane crackling faintly as though lightning slept beneath it. Every step was soundless, yet carried the weight of command. Its eyes, bright as twin moons, swept across the chamber, freezing every scaled warrior in place. And on top of its steady back, was a slime. Murmurs rippled through the gathered guards. Spears lifted half an inch, unsure if they should point or lower in bewilderment. Slime. One whispered, disbelieving. No, impossible. Slimes do not tame wolves. Then, what is this thing? The chief rose fully now, golden scales shimmering in the firelight. His eyes locked on the small, glistening figure perched atop the wolf. Speak, creature, he commanded. Voice steady but edged with caution. Why do you trespass into lizardman lands? The slime pulsed faintly, as though gathering breath. Then a voice, clear, warm, and strangely human, echoed in the chamber. My name is DEKU. I come not as your enemy, but to warn you of the danger soon to strike your people. The cavern fell into stunned silence. The mighty wolf sat with calm dignity, as if his master's words alone warranted respect. And the lizardmen, every one of them, stared in disbelief, not at the wolf, nor the warning, but at the simple, unshakable fact that, the slime had spoken. The chief leaned forward, scales glinting gold in the dim light. A slime that speaks, and names doom upon us. His voice was gravelly, sharp as stone. Why should we not strike you down where you sit, beast? Ranga's hackles rose, fangs flashing with stormlight, but DEKU held him still. His voice did not waver. Once this beast comes for you and kills your kin, it will continue. Until my land, my home. I'm making for monsters will fall too. DEKU said, his tone final, serious, all-ending, and the silence that came next was deep and endless. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. The torches hissed, their flames wavering as if even fire itself held its breath. The chief's eyes narrowed, golden slits gleaming with suspicion and something else, respect, perhaps, buried deep beneath his pride. His claws curled against the armrest. Slime, we will trust your words, but lie and deceive us. The chief's voice dropped, low and edged like a blade. He did not finish the threat, he didn't have to. The weight of it lingered in the chamber like a suffocating fog. DEKU dipped slightly, his voice firm. I understand. My word is all I have, and I won't waste it. A tense silence followed, broken only by the crackle of torches. The chief gave one sharp nod, then lifted his claw to his son. Abiru, prepare the warriors. At dawn, we march. The young lizardman bowed low, fire dancing in his bright green eyes. Yes, father. The chamber stirred to life. Spears thudded against the stone in unison, a guttural chant rising from the throats of the gathered lizardmen. Ranga's tail lashed proudly, his golden eyes reflecting the flames as he glanced toward his master. DEKU could feel the weight of what lay ahead pressing against him, but he steadied himself. He had chosen this. Paring from the brush-like shadows given form were the Tempest wolves of Ayuden. Their fur rippled with the pulse of the storm, eyes gleaming with barely restrained power. Upon their backs rode Hobg. Oblins clad in makeshift armor and Kijin whose sheer presence made the lizardmen stiffen. They did not roar or howl. They waited, silent, disciplined, their gaze fixed, waiting for the call from Deku, their master. Their leader and close friend. The swamp seemed to hold its breath. The orcs moved as one, a tide of brute strength and malice, each step shaking mud and water alike. Their voices rose in a guttural chant, echoing across the clearing, a single-minded hymn of hunger and destruction. Deku's core pulsed faintly atop Ranga's back, absorbing the rhythm of the enemy, feeling the weight of every movement, every breath, every intent. The Tempest wolves' ears twitched, claws dug into the soft earth, tails coiling like springs ready to release. The hobgoblins and kaijin on their backs mirrored the tension, muscles taut, eyes unblinking. Ranga's mental voice whispered urgently, low and calm. Master, they are more numerous than I sensed. But the momentum can be controlled, if you strike wisely. Deku's slime form rippled in response, thoughts settling like water in a still pond. We wait, until the right moment. Let them come closer. Let them underestimate us. Then we show them what it means to face Ayuden. The orcs drew nearer, their chanting growing louder, rhythmically pounding against the swamp floor, but the Tempest wolves and their riders did not move. They were patient, silent, deadly. And at the forefront, separated from the bulk of the horde, a hulking silhouette loomed, tusks gleaming in the fading light, eyes burning with unyielding hunger. The named orc. The swamp fell into tense anticipation. All waited, all but Deku. He rose slightly atop Ranga's back, slime form shimmering faintly, eyes locking on the enemy commander. This ends here, he murmured. And with that, the first clash of the lizardmen, the orcs, and Ayuden's champions was about to erupt. The swamp air grew thick with the stench of blood and wet earth. One by one, orcs toppled under the combined assault of kaijin, hobgoblins, and the lizardmen who had taken cautious positions. Yet even in death, they were not defeated. Those still standing leaned down, tearing into the fallen with gnashing teeth and guttural hunger. Their movements were frenzied, violent, almost ritualistic. From the fallen we become stronger. The mental cry rolled through the swamp, a collective surge of instinct and malice that reverberated through the minds of those who faced them. Every slashed blade and shattered spear only seemed to fuel their frenzy. Arrows rained from above, launched by the bee goblins perched on the Tempest wolves' backs. Each projectile struck with precision, slowing the tide, but the orcs' resolve only hardened. Their bodies, now a chaotic mixture of pain and hunger, surged forward, gnashing, swallowing, growing more formidable with every fallen comrade consumed. Ranga's growl rolled through Deku's consciousness, low and wary. Master, they are feeding, the disasters grow stronger with each corpse they claim. Deku's slime form rippled, tendrils flicking like nervous lightning. Then we make sure they don't reach the village alive. Every strike must count. Control the flow, control the battlefield. The swamp erupted into a deadly dance. Arrows, claws, and blades intertwined, the cries of warriors clashing with the shrieks and roars of orcs. The first stage of the battle had begun, and the named orc waited, biding its time, for when Deku finally intervened. Every movement of the battalion seemed to slow as the massive figure stepped forward. Muscles coiled beneath the dented plate, and jagged teeth flashed in the dim swamplight. Even the mental chaos of the orcs seemed to converge, funneling into a single, pulsing thought. This must be the named orc. Everyone, focus on this one. Deku said over the rush of scrambling voices of his allies. He could sense, this wasn't the orc disaster, but as strong as one that could eventually be won. Deku spread his form across Ranga's back, tendrils flicking outward, gathering every bit of information from the battlefield. Stay calm. Control your strikes. We don't fight blindly. Hit hard, hit smart. Arrows sang through the humid air, clashing with crude shields and dented armor. Claws raked mud, and the orc roared, a sound that vibrated in the very bones of the swamp. Its mental presence rippled outward, instinctive, primal, and focused on survival and domination. Soei's form blurred as he surged forward, a shadow among shadows. His sleek kaijin body moved with uncanny speed, small-crested, horns gleaming faintly in the moonlight. The hobgoblins below were already holding the line, but the orcs that had slipped past their arrows now stumbled into Soei's calculated assault. Tendrils of ood and water splashed as he twisted through the swamp, each strike precise, each motion barely perceptible until it was already too late. Claws and blades met empty air. The next moment, orcs fell, not with the clumsy Thudding collapse of brute force, but with the elegance of a predator that struck before its prey even realized the threat. From Ronga's back, Deku's consciousness guided Soe silently. Cut the stragglers. Control the flow. Don't let them regroup. Focus on your assigned cluster. Soe's eyes narrowed, the mental command anchoring him like a tether. He flowed through the battlefield, a whispering shadow of death, intercepting every orc that dared leave the ranks of the front line. Behind him, Benimaru and Shuna flanked the next wave, drawing the larger, slower orcs into traps laid by the hobgoblins and Tempest wolves. Every movement, every strike, orchestrated by Deku's strategic awareness, turned the swamp into a deadly dance where only precision, coordination, and cunning mattered. Hikuro moved like a shadow given form, each strike a careful balance between calm precision and lethal force. His kaijin body flowed through the marsh, dodging swinging clubs and snapping jaws with the fluid grace of someone who had long mastered both body and mind. Orcs that dared cross his path found themselves outmatched before they even registered the attack. One moment, they lumbered forward with raw strength. The next, they were disarmed, tripped, or pinned, their snarls cut short by the swift, decisive strikes that left no room for resistance. Despite the chaos surrounding him, the thunder of heavy footfalls, the cries of warriors, the distant roars of orcs, Hikuro's face remained calm, almost serene. His eyes scanned constantly, taking in every movement, anticipating every swing, every step. Fury drove his strikes, but it was the fury of control, of calculated precision, not blind rage. Through the mental link, Deku's consciousness guided him subtly, nudging a Wareen SS toward clusters of orcs that might break through the line. Keep the pressure. Don't let them regroup. Focus. Xian moved like water over stone, her kaijin form bending and twisting through the battlefield with effortless grace. Stragglers, the orcs who had slipped past the hobgoblin archers or the Tempest Wolf's jaws, found themselves cut off before they even realized they were isolated. Her strikes were swift and deliberate, a dance of precision that left no room for error. Each sweep of her limbs, each flick of her shadowed weapon, was a lesson in controlled ferocity. Yet amidst the chaos, her eyes constantly flicked toward Deku. From her vantage point atop the marshy ground, she watched the slime atop Ronga's back, directing the flow of battle, commanding the field with an author that seemed both impossible and natural. There was reverence in her gaze, respect tempered with a hint of awe. This was the master who had named them, shaped them, given them purpose beyond mere survival. And now, under his guidance, they were proving themselves in the crucible of combat. From deep within the orc encampment, a low, resonant rumble began to roll across the battlefield. The surviving orcs shifted, their glowing eyes lifting toward the hill that overlooked the swamp. Muscles tensed, claws scraping the mud, as if the earth itself was vibrating in anticipation. The rumbling grew, a chorus of guttural mental cries that echoed through the minds of all the orcs, a single, unified thought pulsing with hunger and fury. They surged forward in waves, their rhythm coordinated, each step deliberate. Crushing debris beneath them. From the shadows, Deku's slime form quivered atop Ronga's back, sensing the shift immediately. Tendrils flicked nervously as he observed the enemy gathering. "This is it," Deku murmured. His voice steady but sharp. The one leading them, the named orc. "Everyone, prepare yourselves." A chill ran through the kaijin, hobgoblins, and tempest wolves alike. They could feel the weight of the approaching presence, a force that demanded attention, that could change the tide of the fight if underestimated. The battle was about to escalate, and Deku would face the source head-on. "I hunger." The words tore across the battlefield, carried on the mental chorus of the orcs. Every footstep, every guttural growl, reverberated with the singular, unyielding will of their leader. "I hunger." The named orc bellowed again, his voice booming, resonating through the swamp like a drum of war. The ground trembled beneath his bulk, mud and debris trembling as if acknowledging his presence. Deku's slime form pulsed, tendrils stiffening with tension. "This is no ordinary orc," he murmured to Ronga, whose hackles bristled and teeth bared in a low snarl. "He's evolved, or close to it. We need precision. Control the battlefield. Everyone, hold formation and wait for my signal." The kaijin shifted into poised stances, their movements coiled like springs. The hobgoblins readied their bows and blades. Tempest wolves crouched low, muscles rippling under their fur. Every being in Ayudan's force understood the silent command, the named orc moves, we strike, together. The swamp held its breath. The first true clash with the orc disaster was about to begin. The swamp battlefield had gone eerily quiet, save for the heavy, thunderous steps of the approaching figure. The air itself seemed to grow heavier with each tremor, the stench of decay and hunger rolling in like a suffocating fog. From the mist of trudging orcs emerged a giant, towering above the others, armor fused with flesh. Tusks dripping with foul saliva, and eyes burning with a ravenous gold. His presence made the other orcs shrink back in reverence. This was no ordinary monster. This was one that had consumed countless kin and stolen their strength. The orc disaster. On Ranga's back, Deku's slime form quivered, his senses sharpening as he locked onto the massive aura ahead. It wasn't just power, this was despair made manifest, gnawing hunger wrapped in flesh. Deku could feel the weight of it pressing against him, daring him to falter. This is the real thing, Deku whispered, his usually steady tone carrying an edge of fear. Everyone, fall back, I'll handle him, alone. Shion barked, her blade dripping with orc blood. Lord Deku, trust me. Deku's voice cut through the battlefield, firm and commanding. The orc disaster's guttural roar split the silence, shaking the marsh. I hunger. The army responded with a unified cry, stomping their feet like drums of war. But their eyes, those glowing, starved eyes, were fixed not on the Kaijin, not on the Tempest wolves, but on Deku. Predator against starved, hope against despair. The clash was inevitable. The orc disaster loomed, its shadow stretching over the battlefield like a storm. Deku launched himself from Ranga's back, slime form whipping tendrils outward to propel himself forward. The clash began in an instant. Bam! A massive clawed hand met Deku's tendril strike, the shockwave flattening the mud around them. The sheer force rattled even Hakuro's composure as the veterans watched from a safe distance. You are weak, little slime. The orc disaster snarled, golden eyes narrowing on Deku. The orc raised another clawed hand, swiping at Deku, sending the slime back. Deku skidded back, slime tendrils gripping the marsh for balance. You're not getting the chance, he shot back, though his core quivered. The orc disaster lunged, swiping with speed that belied his size. Deku dodged narrowly, slime tendrils slapping into the mud for traction. Each strike from the beast carved deep trenches into the earth, shockwaves rippling through the marsh like cannon fire. Then, I see my child has been keeping you occupied. The voice rolled out across the battlefield like a chill wind. Every goblin, ogre, and lizardman froze. From the shadows of the broken encampment, a figure emerged, tall, slender. Draped in a coat as white as fresh snow. A long plague mask covered his face, gleaming eerily under the moonlight. Deku's core pulsed faster, his instinct screaming danger. The orc disaster's frenzied growl faltered, almost deferential. The crimson mark across its chest flared brighter, resonating with the newcomer's presence. You, Deku spat, tendrils curling protectively. You're the one behind this, aren't you? The masked figure tilted his head slightly, hands folding neatly behind his back. Merely, a gardener tending his crop. My poor creature was careless, but no matter. This disaster will prove far more promising than I anticipated. Now my child destroy all here, absorb their power and become your final form, the true disaster, a new demon lord. The figure adds, tilting his head back. As he does, he gazes back at the stilled form of his orc disaster, who stands stilled as a rock. The orc disaster twitched, its swollen frame trembling with suppressed power, magicals leaking off in choking waves. The masked figure spread his arms in silent reverence, ignoring Deku entirely. Dumb as a rock, the figure muttered beneath his breath, leaning close to his creation, voice muffled by the plague mask. Deku, watching, felt a cartoonish sweat drop form and drip off his slime body. Sage, is there a reason I can hear that creep's thoughts? He asked, forcing calm into his mental voice. Acknowledged. Skill, detect thought has been active for a while. Another sweat drop appeared. Wait, what? Since when do I? Hold on, Sage, you sound different. More formal. Wait a minute, when did I acquire that skill? Single quote. Notice, skill was acquired during the encounter with the orc disaster. Condition fulfilled. Empathic resonance with opponent's unstable thoughts. So, I've just been eavesdropping on villains without even knowing. Great. Real heroic of me, Deku thought, puffing slightly, his slime body jiggling in indignation. The masked figure, oblivious, straightened and extended a gloved hand toward his creation. Now, rise, my child. Evolve beyond your limits, claim the mantle of Demon Lord. The masked figure stretched out his hand, his tone smug and commanding. Now, my child, become a Demon Lord. Devour all before you, and ascend. Deku's body trembled as waves of magicules flooded the swamp. His detect thought skill caught the villain's mind again, at last. My masterpiece will erase these pests. And through him, I will rise above even the Demon Lords themselves. Deku stiffened. So that's it, he's not raising this thing, he's using it. Just like a tool. The orc disaster howled, body convulsing as its gluttonous instincts clashed against the masked figure's control. Its hollow eyes turned, not toward Deku, not toward the goblins, but squarely at its master. Wah! No, not me. I am your creator. The figure cried, staggering back. Obey your father. The beast lunged. Its jaws closed around the plague-masked figure, swallowing him whole before the scream had even finished. Power erupted outward in a shockwave, the orc's body swelling, twisting, reshaping into something far more grotesque and terrible. Its voice gurgled as its maw split wider than before. Hun, Jeer, more, power. Magicules spiraled into the sky, blotting out the sun as the evolution began. Warning. The consumption of that masked figure has caused the named orc to begin its evolution to Demon Lord. It will become a disaster, a true disaster. The ground cracked beneath Deku's slime form as the shockwave rolled out. The goblins and Kijin staggered, struggling to stay upright against the pressure of surging magicules. A true disaster. No, 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 this thing's already bad enough. Deku thought, panic bubbling inside. His slime form rippled as sweat seemed to drip off his jelly-like body. The orc disaster's flesh warped, sprouting jagged horns and layered muscle that pulsed unnaturally. Black veins spidered across its swollen frame, glowing faintly with corrupted magic. Its eyes, once blank, now burned with a twisted, hungry intelligence. Feed, devour, ascend, it growled, each word laced with distorted power. Notice, predator skill recommended. TCH, yeah, thanks, Sage. Like I wasn't already planning on it. Deku shot back mentally, steeling himself. All around, the other monsters gasped at the sight. Benimaru's hand went to his blade, knuckles whitening. Shion growled low in her throat. Even Hakuro's sharp eyes narrowed in unease. Lord Deku, this is no longer the same enemy, Hakuro warned. That thing, it radiates the aura of a calamity. He swamp quaked again as the beast bellowed, its voice shaking the air like a war horn. Deku flexed, gathering magicules into his core. He couldn't show weakness, not now, not in front of his people. All right then, he muttered. His green aura sparking to life around his slime form. Guess it's you and me, true disaster. Let's see which of us devours whom first. The swamp shivered beneath the weight of the orc's evolved form. Blackened veins crawled across his bulk, jagged horns spiraling skyward. His eyes, once animalistic, now burned with a cunning malice that made even the Kijin flinch. I am the orc disaster. Geld, the starved lord. The named disaster, now known as Geld, roars out, his entire form rippling and bulging as he does. Deku's slime form quivered from where he stood on the mashlands. Tendrils bristling as he assessed Geld's immense new presence. Every pulse of magicules from the orc disaster radiated hunger, malice, and overwhelming strength. You've grown, but this ends now, Geld. Deku shouted, his voice cutting across the swamp like steel through fog. Geld lunged, each step cracking the ground beneath him. His clawed hands swiped in arcs that could flatten trees. His roar sending shockwaves through the swamp water. Deku reacted instantly, elongating his slime body into sharp, whip-like tendrils to deflect the massive strikes. He also uses his form to weave out of blows and stomps from the hulking behemoth of Geld. The swamp became a chaotic dance of mud, water, and debris. Geld's immense fist slammed the ground, launching geysers of mud toward Deku. Ho split his form to strike back at precise weak points in the orc's bulging form. I am hunger. I will consume all. Geld bellowed, veins blackening further, his body writhing with gluttonous energy as he sought to devour everything in his path. Deku's slime tendrils lashed out in controlled strikes, reading the rhythm of Geld's attacks. Predict, Control, flow, his own instincts flared, allowing him to anticipate each blow. Each surge of strength, each hungry lunge. The battle had begun in earnest, Deku versus Geld, slime versus disaster, and the swamp itself seemed to hold its breath. Master, he's adapting fast. Xian's voice rang through the mental link, her strikes cutting down orcs that tried to flank Deku. I can see it. But so can I. Deku replied, splitting his form to envelop a massive mud geyser and reforming. He's holding his own. Benimaru muttered as his gaze followed each blow and strike Deku made upon the disaster Geld. He's a good battle analyst, he's learning on the go. Soe muttered, dodging a blow from an orc. Crap, this guy is a pain. Deku thought, dodging another blow from Geld. He was using his natural slime body and the reflexes from his last life as a human. It's time to stop holding back. Deku thought it out, his final Hail Mary was the only way he'd end this fight. He'd have to get close, and that was a 50-50 chance of working. Tendrils lashed outward, grabbing onto the orc disaster's shoulders, slithering around bulging muscles and jagged horns, finding gaps in the armor like hide. I won't let you, Deku thought, voice tense with determination. With a snap, he launches himself upwards towards Geld. It was a risky play getting close, but it was going to work. Predator. Deku screamed out, his form expanding, spreading over Geld's form like a blanket. Suffocating the giant monstrosity. Heavy footfalls became blanketed, as the scenery shifted from a marshland to an arid desert. The desert heat shimmered, sand swirling in. Violent eddies around Deku's mental projection. The scene was grotesque, orcs driven by an insatiable hunger, ripping and devouring without thought, the young ones screaming in desperation. Deku's slime form rippled atop Geld. The physical world trembling under their clash even as his consciousness observed the horrifying vision. This is what he's feeding on. This isn't just strength, it's despair. Starvation. Need. Rage. He clenched, tendrils tightening around Geld like iron chains. I have to cut this off at the source. No hesitation. No mercy. The orc disaster writhed under the suffocating pressure. Its guttural cries echoing across both swamp and mindscape. The twisted vision in Deku's mind shifted. He saw the orc's memories, the hunger that had driven Geld to devour everything in his path, including his own kind. The starved lord, it's more than just brute force. It's an obsession with survival. He'll never stop, unless I make him. Deku's form flared bright, absorbing the essence of the swamp, the tempest wolves. The Kaijin, the hobgoblins, their combined power lending him strength. This is it, the final strike. He pulsed outward, stretching tendrils deep into Geld's core, restraining, constricting. Disrupting the flow of gluttonous magicules. The orc's roar became a guttural, distorted scream. Must, feed, must, survive. Deku whispered, a low hum vibrating through the monster's mind, I am your predator. You will starve. The swamp convulsed. Sand and mud, desert and marsh, blurred together in the mental battlefield as Deku's assault tore through Geld's form. The starved orc's massive body shuddered, energy spiraling uncontrollably, until, finally, it collapsed, groaning, beaten and sated of its violent hunger. All around, the surviving orcs froze, their minds connecting to their fallen leader's will. One by one, they lowered weapons, knees bending in surrender, unable to continue without the guidance of the starved lord. A lone orc, trembling and wide-eyed, walked close. Bowed their head at the towering mass of slime that was once Geld and muttered. Rest, easy, father. The Kaijin and Tempest wolves stiffened, horrified at the unintended words. Deku's slime body quivered, tendrils snapping back as he blinked, figuratively, at the comment. The battlefield went silent, save for the bubbling swamp and the soft patter of defeated orcs. Deku's final Hail Mary had worked. The predator had bested the starved. The sky was fire. Shizu Izawa clutched her mother's hand, her small body trembling as bombs howled through the air. Their home, her world, Kola. Psed around them in waves of searing heat. Every breath hurt, every sound was thunder. She wanted to scream, but her throat was ash. Live, Shizu, her mother whispered, forcing a final smile even as flames crept closer. No matter what happens, live. The next instant, the world tore away. Shizu blinked, and found herself standing in a vast, gleaming hall, the marble cold beneath her bare feet. A tall man with golden hair and eyes like sharpened glass sat upon a throne, studying her as though she were an insect pinned to a board. "You will do," he said at last, voice as calm as ice. "Where am I? Mama." But before her words could form, a circle of runes ignited around her, blazing with power she couldn't comprehend. The man's tone was flat, almost bored. "I am Leon Cromwell. From this day forward, you will serve as a vessel." Quote. The air split with a roar. From the circle rose a shape of fire, a being of molten rage and hunger, Ifrit. Shizu's eyes widened, her body paralyzed with terror. The spirit lunged, and flames stabbed into her chest, branding themselves onto her soul. The pain was endless. She screamed, hands clawing at her body, as the fire filled her lungs, her veins, her heart. Her skin didn't burn away, instead, it fused, molded, trapped her in an eternal furnace. From somewhere far above, Leon's voice drifted, unmoved. "Good. The contract holds." Through the agony, one thought echoed in her mind, her mother's last words. Live. Ayuden was bustling, thriving, and succeeding, even after the fight between the lizardmen and the orc disaster. Some of the scaled warriors had already begun to evolve into Dragonutes, such as the chief, now named Gabiri, whose power swelled under Deku's banner. Most chose to follow him back to Ayuden, including Abiru, the chief's son, to the homeland of monsters, where goblins, Kijin, and wolves worked side by side to raise a new future. Some orcs had also sworn fealty to Deku, joining the growing community. Many gained names, ranks, and new strength upon joining Ayuden. One such orc was the former general of the orc disaster's forces, his son, named after his father, Geld. Streets of dirt were turning into paths of stone. Smoke curled from forge fires, where blacksmiths hammered out armor for the warriors. Fields were being tilled at the forest's edge, young goblins laughing as they sowed seeds. The Tempest wolves patrolled diligently, their storm-tinged eyes ever watchful, while the Kijin oversaw training, shaping the goblin soldiers into a proper army. Sunlight gleamed off Deku's slimy form, metal he was. Wondering about that energy he took in after facing off with the orc disaster, the starved, no matter, he had a job to do. "Master." The mental call came across Deku's mind, Ranga. Loyal and out scouting with some of the new orcs. "I am here, Ranga, what seems to be the matter?" Deku called back to Ranga. Ranga's mental voice rumbled like distant thunder, low and tense. "Master, movement. Humans. Approaching Ayuden. Small numbers. But fast, and careful, they're coming from the south, through the forest passes." Deku's slime form pulsed with focus, tendrils shifting instinctively. "Humans, here." His mind flickered to the lessons of his last life. Heroes, villains, chaos. Even here, in a land of monsters and rebuilding, trouble had a way of finding him. "Are they armed? Dangerous?" he asked, stretching his senses outward through the forest, mud, and stone. His detect thought skill, honed in past battles, flickered to life, brushing against the fleeting consciousness of the approaching humans. Weapons, yes. Armor, light but sturdy. And their intent, cautious but purposeful. "They move like scouts, master, but there's more. One human is lagging." Ranga said, his tone was cautious and worried. Deku's core rippled, tendrils quivering. "Keep an eye, Ranga. When they get close, return right away." Ranga's growl rumbled low, almost a vibration in Deku's mind. "Understood, master. I will maintain distance. But my senses are sharp. That lagging human, something is off." Deku's slime body pulsed, stretching slightly as if to reach farther, probing the edges of the forest and the dirt paths. He could feel the subtle irregularities in their movement, hesitation, fleeting bursts of caution, and a pulse of unease that didn't belong to the others. The forest seemed alive with whispers. Branches scratching at cloaks and armor as Shizu Izawa led her small party through the dimming light. The setting sun cast long, flickering shadows, painting the forest in shades of blood and gold. Shizu's steps were careful, measured. But every nerve in her body screamed vigilance. Her hand hovered over the hilt of her blade, even as her mind tried to focus on the task ahead, reach the Rimuru Red Village safely and deliver the message. "Are you sure this path is safe?" one of her companions, a young swordsman with light armor, asked, glancing nervously into the shadows. Shizu shook her head slightly, her gaze scanning the tree line. "No path through a forest is ever truly safe," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Are you okay?" A new voice asked out. Shizu's gaze caught an unsure sight. It was like what she saw couldn't be real, but it was a goblin on top of a direwolf that was larger than any she had ever seen. Shizu froze, her hand tightening on her blade. The creature. Wasn't attacking, yet, but the sheer size of it made her heart skip. Its fur shimmered with storm light, muscles rippling beneath thick pelt, and the goblin perched atop it looked disciplined. Purposeful. Not the mindless marauder she had expected from tales of monsters in the wild. Stay calm, she whispered, voice taut but steady. Don't make any sudden movements. The goblin on the direwolf tilted its head slightly, as if assessing them. Are you lost? The goblin asked. Shizu's eyes narrowed, her grip tightening instinctively on her blade. The calmness in the goblin's tone was unnerving, a contrast to the wild, storm-lit beast beneath it. She could feel the tension in the air. This was no random encounter. We mean no harm, Shizu replied carefully, her voice steady but cautious. We're just passing through, delivering a message to your Goblin Chiefian. Goblin Chiefian. Oh, you mean our boss. Our master DEKU. The goblin on top of the direwolf said with a bright grin on their face. Shizu's eyes widened, her grip tightening as her mind struggled to process the words. Master, DEKU, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The goblin gave a short, proud nod, leaning slightly forward atop the direwolf. Yes, our glorious master is ahead in Ayuden, our hometown. They turned to forest on top of the direwolf, and then they turned to face the humans. Are you coming? Shizu's companions exchanged uneasy glances, uncertainty flickering across their faces like shadows in the fading sunlight. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Shizu tightened her grip on her sword, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. We'll follow. Shizu began. She turned to her companions and whispered, keep your guard up, just in case. The goblin atop the direwolf barked a short, sharp laugh, clearly entertained by their cautious advance. Smart choice. Master doesn't like surprises. But don't worry, you won't be harmed if your intentions are true. Shizu's eyes scanned the dense forest around them, the shadows deepening as the sun dipped further behind the horizon. She could sense something watching, but it was just as cautious as herself and her companions. DEKU's slime body rested atop a gently sloping hill just outside Ayuden's walls, a nearly invisible mass of shimmering green that blended into the forest floor. His form was slumped into the grass, enjoying the way it felt on his slime form. His amorphous body rippled lazily in the evening breeze, tendrils stretching and curling over the soft blades of grass. There was something comforting about the sensation, the cool earth beneath him, the gentle rustle of leaves, and the faint warmth of the sun as it began its slow descent behind the horizon. Even after everything, the battles, the chaos, this small peace was welcome. Yet his senses remained alert, stretching outward like the threads of a spider's web. Through the forest edge, he could feel movement, small, careful, deliberate. Ranga's mental growl confirmed it, the humans were drawing near. DEKU allowed himself a faint smile, even though the form he now had could not show it. The grass shifted beneath him as he stretched upward slightly, testing the wind, the scents, the faint magical currents that threaded through Ayuden. His body quivered with anticipation, but also contentment. This was his world now, and even as its master, he could still feel the simple pleasure of a quiet moment, a soft hill, and the earth beneath his form. Then Ranga's low, rumbling voice cut through the calm. Master, they are closer. Shall I prepare? DEKU's tendrils twitched, and he let a soft pulse ripple outward. Observe first. Prepare, but do not strike. Let them show their intentions. Humans in this land are unpredictable. He raised himself up, letting the cool air hit him, his senses still stretching outward to meet the approaching party. Even as a slime, even as a master of monsters, there was a part of him that still simply enjoyed this, quiet, unthreatening, and alive. DEKU's form began to shift subtly, small ripples of green rising and coiling like smoke over the hilltop. The faint glimmer of his slime body caught the last rays of the sun, scattering light like liquid emerald. He remained still, letting the glow be just noticeable enough to draw attention, but not enough to appear threatening. Through the forest, he could see the party moving cautiously along the dirt path. Their steps were measured, eyes scanning the shadows. He could sense their tension, the lagging figure Ranga had worn. Him about tugging faintly at his awareness like a loose thread. Curious, he thought, sending a gentle pulse of detection outward. This one isn't entirely like the others. He stretched a tendril forward lightly, brushing it against a low branch, letting the motion be natural and unassuming. The humans would notice it eventually, a small shimmer in the dimming forest light, but it wouldn't startle them yet. This was about observation, about understanding. Ranga's presence thrummed beside him, barely visible as a shadow in his awareness. Master, they are nearly at the clearing. Deku allowed a slow ripple of his mass to rise. The faintest hint of form coalescing into something vaguely humanoid, enough to suggest intelligence and awareness. He kept it low, cautious, watching how the humans reacted, how they moved. And what emotions ran just beneath the surface of their minds. Let's see what they want, he thought, feeling the familiar spark of curiosity that had carried him through so many battles, so many worlds. Even here, even as a slime, he could not turn off the part of him that wanted to understand, to help, and to protect. The forest held its breath along with him, waiting for the moment when the humans would finally notice the master of Eiyuden waiting quietly just beyond their path. The humans approached the clearing just as the last light of the sun sank beneath the horizon. Deku shifted slightly atop the grassy hill, his slime body gleaming faintly in the twilight. He let his tendrils ripple in a calm, steady pattern, enough to appear alive, but not hostile. The group stopped when they saw him. Their leader, a woman with long dark hair and sharp, wary eyes, stepped forward. Her hand rested on the hilt of her sword, but her posture wasn't reckless, it was practiced. Controlled. Deku felt the tension in his core ease, if only slightly. This wasn't a reckless adventurer or a would-be conqueror. She moved like someone used to danger, but not eager to start a fight. The woman's eyes fixed on him. Not with disgust or fear like so many humans before, but with something odd, like she couldn't believe a slime as strong as he exists. You're the master of this village? She asked cautiously. Her voice carried the faintest accent, not from this land. Deku tilted his head, slime shifting to form a smile. I am. My name is Deku. He paused, letting his words ripple carefully through the air. And you are. For a moment, silence hung between them. Her hand flexed slightly on her sword before she finally answered. Shizu Izawa. The name struck Deku like a spark. Izawa. Japanese. His core pulsed faintly, and he studied her more closely. Her stance, the rhythm of her words, even the way she hesitated, it wasn't just a cultural difference. It was familiar. Too familiar. Could it be? His thoughts raced. He'd died back in his own world. Woken up here, reborn as a slime. Was it possible she'd come the same way? That she, too, had once walked the streets of Earth. But she was still human while he was reborn as a slime. Was her journey here in this world different to his own? You have a message for me? Deku asked, as a smile appeared on Shizu's face. She motioned to her party to head into the town of Eiyuden, leaving her and Deku alone with each other. Shizu waited until her companions had disappeared through the gates of Eiyuden before turning back toward Deku. The evening air pressed close around them, carrying the faint smell of forge smoke and fresh cut wood from the growing town. Her hand lingered by her sword hilt, but not in threat, more like habit. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Deku tilted slightly, his slime form shimmering in the twilight. Finally, he broke the silence. You said your name was Shizu Izawa, right? His voice held careful weight on the surname. Her eyes narrowed faintly. Yes. Deku hesitated, then pushed forward. Izawa, that's not a name from this world, is it? The woman's posture stiffened. The calm, controlled mask she wore faltered just for an instant, enough for Deku to notice. She glanced away, eyes flicking to the treeline as though gauging her escape. You noticed. Her voice was low, cautious, almost resigned. Deku pulsed softly, the slime equivalent of a steadying breath. Because, I'm not from here either. I was born on Earth. Japan. Shizu's head snapped back toward him, eyes wide. For a heartbeat, her composure cracked entirely. Then, as quickly as it broke, she forced the mask back into place. So, it's not just me. There was a weight in her words, something heavy and long carried. Deku felt it, like heat radiating from her body, only, this wasn't ordinary warmth. A subtle shimmer clung to the air around her, like embers flickering against the night. You've been here, longer than me. Deku guessed. Haven't you? Her hand tightened on her gauntlet, the faintest tremor passing through her fingers. She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her tone was quieter. Almost pained. Decades. I stopped counting after a while. She exhaled slowly, and for an instant a faint glow of heat rippled from her chest, like fire straining against a cage. She pressed her hand there quickly, smothering it with practiced ease. Deku's tendrils twitched. That presence inside you, I can sense it. May I ask? Shizu closed her eyes, a shadow of grief passing over her features. Ifrit, she whispered. A fire spirit. No, a demon. Bound to me since the day I was summoned here. Her voice shook slightly, but she forced it steady, as if she had rehearsed the words 1,000 times before. He sleeps most of the time. But he's always there, waiting, and you're alone with dealing with him. Deku asked a simple question, but one that shook Shizu, causing the stoic warrior to burst out laughing. The sound startled Deku. It wasn't a warm laugh, nor the mocking kind he sometimes heard from adventurers who underestimated him. No, this laugh was raw, cracked at the edges, like a weary soldier who had finally been asked the one question no one else ever dared. Shizu pressed a hand against her mask, shoulders shaking as the laughter slipped out, brittle and uneven. It went on a moment too long, until it bled into silence. Alone, she said at last, voice trembling faintly. Her gaze, hidden by the mask, turned upward toward the fading sunset. Yes, always alone. That's the only way it's ever been. The warmth around her flared again, subtle at first but growing hotter. Deku could feel it prick against his slime's surface. It wasn't just heat. It was Ifrit, stirring beneath her skin, and before Deku could ask anything, she began to convulse and seize in place. Deku froze, his core pulsing with alarm as the fire flickered across her hands. For a moment, he thought she might erupt entirely, consumed by the raging presence inside her. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the flames guttered out. Shizu staggered, her breath ragged. One hand braced against her chest while the other clenched into a trembling fist. Silence pressed in again, broken only by the faint crackle of dying embers in the grass. Deku shifted forward a fraction, tendrils twitching uncertainly. Shizu, I'm fine. The words came too fast, too sharp. She straightened, forcing steel back into her posture, though her shoulders still shook beneath the armor. That happens sometimes. Ifrit tests the boundaries of his cage. But I can handle it. Deku wasn't convinced. The image of her seizing, flames clawing their way through her body, was burned into his mind. That didn't look like something anyone should face alone, he said softly. Her masked face turned toward him, unreadable in the dim light. You sound just like someone I used to know, she murmured. Almost too low for him to hear. Her hand lowered slowly from her chest, fingers curling at her side. For a moment, her voice gentled, stripped of its hardened edge. Thank you, for asking. But this burden is mine. No one else's. Before Deku could protest, she turned on her heel and walked toward the gates, her steps steady despite the faint scorch marks left in the grass where her flames had touched. Deku remained on the hilltop, watching until the shadows swallowed her figure. His core trembled with unease. She's stronger than anyone I've met in this world, but how much longer can she keep fighting alone? Deku pondered alone, his thoughts consumed by what he had seen, and what he could do to help. As night fell on the town of Ayuden, Deku pondered on his thoughts from earlier. It seemed that the demon Ifrit would break free. It was a certain point, he could sense it, but when and where? And could Deku take Ifrit when the demon broke free? Deku began to close his non-existent eyes to catch some semblance of sleep, but before he could, he heard it. Sage. Warning. The human known as Shizu Izawa has left Ayuden. Crap, she left, but I was. Deku began but gave up with an annoyed noise of frustration. He left the tent and began to follow after her. She was going to do something dumb, and he knows it. The night air was crisp, cool. Against Deku's slime form as he slipped silently out of the tent. Ayuden slept behind him, its torches burning low along the gates, a town blissfully unaware of the danger that might already be stirring. His tendrils rippled anxiously as he picked up Shizu's trail, faint impressions in the earth, the lingering heat in the grass where her boots had pressed. It wasn't hard to follow, she hadn't tried to cover her tracks. She's not even being careful, Deku muttered under his breath. What is she planning? The forest pressed close, dark and alive with distant cries of nocturnal beasts. Deku's senses stretched outward like a net, combing through the mana currents. The further he went, the heavier the air felt, thick with heat, wrong with pressure. Then, ahead, a flicker. A faint glow between the trees. Pulsing like the heart of a furnace. Shizu stood in the clearing, her mask tilted skyward as she breathed heavily, gauntleted hand clutching at her chest. Flames licked along her arm in erratic bursts. Fighting against her will. Ifrit, Deku whispered, his core tightening. Her voice carried faintly over the crackle of fire. I know you're there. I can feel your eyes on me, slime. She didn't turn, but her tone wasn't hostile, only resigned. I didn't want anyone to see this. Not your people. Not you. A surge of fire burst around her feet, scorching the soil. She sank to her knees. Mask hiding her face but not the pain in her voice. He's waking up. And with a guttural scream, Shizu was engulfed in a fire so powerful it created a pillar of flames that surrounded her form. Deku's tendrils shot outward instinctively, probing the raging heat without touching it directly. His core pulsed, a mixture of fear, determination, and that unshakable drive he carried from his old life. This is bad. He muttered, stretching a thin filament toward the base of the fiery pillar, sensing the wild, unrestrained spirit thrashing within. Ifrit was stirring, and the sheer RGY made the forest around him shimmer and distort, and just as the pillar formed, it faded, leaving behind a crouching figure that slowly rose from the ash. Standing in a smoldering ruin that was once a grass patch was a creature unlike anything Deku had seen before. Its body radiated heat like the sun itself, eyes glowing with molten intensity, and every movement sent flickers of fire dancing across the scorched earth. Flames licked its limbs and coiled like serpents around its shoulders, yet its form held a distinct, humanoid shape, a terrifying fusion of spirit and fire. Deku's tender ILS quivered as he extended toward it cautiously, analyzing the aura radiating off the being. This was Ifrit, fully awakened, a being of pure destructive power, bound by Shizu yet wild and unpredictable. Every pulse of its energy carried weight, threat, and an almost sentient malice. It regarded Deku with eyes that burned like embers, and a low, rumbling growl vibrated through the clearing. Who dares? The fire being hissed. Each word scorching the air itself. Deku's mass shimmered, subtly coalescing into a more solid, humanoid approximation. I am Deku, he said, voice steady despite the heat licking at his slime body. You are a slime, weak, easy picking. Ifrit began with a barrage of fire attacks, each hitting true and encasing Deku in a fire so hot it could rival the sun. The air trembled with heat and fury. Every breath Deku took was a fraction too warm, and every pulse of the earth beneath him vibrated with the energy of an untamed spirit. Ifrit's molten eyes burned like twin suns. His flames licking across the clearing, scorching grass and earth alike. Deku's slime form shimmered in the heat, tendrils quivering as he absorbed every flicker of Ifrit's movement. The monster, a towering mass of flames. Sage, I need you here. Deku muttered out. AGKNOWLAGED, I am ready to assist. Any suggestion to beat Ifrit but keep Shizu alive? Deku asked, dodging a blast from the greater flame spirit. Query, the fire spirit and Shizu are one, no known course of action can be surmised here. So no. Deku asked, weaving in and out of each of Ifrit's blows, the fire spirit's screams promising destruction and terror. Confirmation, correct. She cannot be spared if you attack him directly. Only through absorption with the unique skill, Predator can the bond be severed without annihilation. Kill Ifrit. Absorbed him and also doom Shizu. Deku muttered out, a physical manifestation of his annoyance at whomever summoned Shizu, appearing in his slime form in the shape of a sweat droplet. Affirmative. Only through Predator can the battle be won. Timing, precision, and willpower are paramount. Deku's slime mass quivered, tendrils extending like thin threads of emerald silk. Probing the waves of heat and energy. The flames of Ifrit hissed and recoiled as he drew closer, sensing the intent to consume, to absorb. Okay, time to beat a fire spirit. Sage, I need you to guide me here. Deku muttered out, a sign of his solemnness about this action. Request confirmed, I will guide you. When you are ready, strike. Use Predator and end Ifrit. Got it, Deku said, a breath escaping his slimy form. Even though he had no lungs to breathe, A faint flicker of his hollow eye sockets glistened with a hint of gold, a sign that Deku isn't fighting alone in this fight. He has Sage, aka the voice of the world, on his side at this moment, and no one will stop him. The heat pressed in around him, every flicker of flame from Ifrit like a lash against his slime body. Deku's tendrils stretched outward, delicate yet deliberate, weaving between the inferno-like threads of green silk against a roaring infernal storm. Each movement was precise, controlled, not a single extraneous twitch. Each attack from Ifrit proving how much the fire spirit could end Deku with one well-placed blow. Deku's core pulsed rapidly, the molten heat of Ifrit radiating outward in waves that threatened to destabilize his form. Every strike from the fire spirit sent tremors through the ground, singeing the air, and yet Deku moved with a calm, deliberate precision. Anticipating each strike like a seasoned strategist reading the flow of battle. His tendrils wove through the flames, probing, testing, feeling for the edges of the spirit's essence. Each flicker, each crackle of heat was data, an opportunity. He could sense the raw power coiled in Ifrit, like a predator waiting to strike, but also the fragile thread connecting the fire spirit to Shizu. This has to work. Deku muttered internally, focusing every shred of his will. One misstep, and it's over. Ifrit roars with temperament, a massive circle of symbols appearing where Deku sat. Agkan. Olij D. Ifrit is using the skill, Inferno Pillar. Deku's slime form tensed instinctively, tendrils stiffening as the circle of symbols blazed into being, burning into the air with a light that threatened to sear even his amorphous body. Heat radiated outward in waves, carrying with it a force that made the ground quake and singe beneath him. Confirmation. Extreme danger. This is Ifrit's ultimate, unrestrained attack. Crap, I can't dodge it. Deku screamed out as the attack encompassed his entire slime form. Flames lap at his slime form, teasing and testing Deku's form. What's going on? Deku muttered out after being encompassed in the massive pillar of fire from Ifrit. He felt like the attack was going on for longer than expected. AGKNOWLAGED, unique skill, thermal fluctuation resistance has been activated. Damage from fire attacks does no damage. Deku's slime form gained a physical manifestation of his embarrassment in the form of a faint blush and a sweat drop. Sage sounded fed up with me. Deku thought out as the pillar of fire dissipates and revealed a shocked Ifrit who stared on with an open mouth. Deku's tendrils wavered, still trembling from the sheer intensity of the Inferno Pillar. But he felt the subtle reassurance of Sage's annoyed guidance. Flame resistance, what can you do? Now my turn. Predator. Deku said with a cocky tone quite unlike his former self. His former human self at least. Deku's tendrils shot forward like liquid emerald blades, weaving through the residual heat and wrapping around the core of Ifrit's essence. Flames hissed, recoiling as if stung by the sheer audacity of his move. The air around him warped, crackled, and shimmered with the concentrated energy of the spirit he now aimed to consume. Each tendril covering every inch of Ifrit's body. Master, the mental voice cry that came from Ranga was a joy to hear. The Tempest Wolf could carry Shizu back home, and from his slimy shadow the wolf in question appeared. His tail wagging despite the scene he came across. Can you carry us both home, Ranga? I am pooped. Deku said, and just after he said that, his slime form sank into the charged grass where he sat. Ranga's massive form scooped his master, Deku, and the odd swordswoman up. Despite the destruction around him, the Tempest Wolf's presence radiated reassurance, a tether to reality amid the chaos. His tail swished lazily, unconcerned by the heat and flames, yet somehow full of purpose, and with strong strides from his woven form, Ranga left the former site of a battle, with master and companion on his back. Light from a flickering candle stirred Deku awake. He was in the medical tent with Shizu, who was awake, barely but awake. So, Shizu began turning her head to face Deku, the one who freed. But doomed her also. Don't speak, rest, we can talk in the morning. Deku slurred out, still groggy but slowly returning to normal speech. I may not make it to morning. Slime, no Deku. Ifrit was the spirit that was sealed in me when I was summoned here over decades ago. During that time, I became known by many names. Conqueror of Flames was one such name, but my real name. The name I was born with, it is Shizu Izawa, and I thank you, I don't even know your name, Shizu said each time she spoke. Her words were coated with coughing and wheezing. Deku shifted slightly on his own cot, his slime form sinking to be next to Shizu, no Shizu. Deku climbed atop a nearby chair, settling into the wooden frame of it. My name, it was Izuku Midoriya. Izuku began. He was going to continue to speak, but a very violent cough from Shizu stopped him. Izuku. I like that same. Izuku. I have a question for you, will you hear it? Shizu asked, sweat covering her trembling from. Deku nodded solemnly, the unsaid conclusion held in the air. Will you eat me, like you ate Ifrit? Shizu continued, I don't want to become Magicules. I want to die in the only place I have ever felt safe, when you were fighting Ifrit and you absorbed him. I felt your slime stomach. Light from the flickering candle danced along the walls, casting Deku's shadow long and distorted. Shizu's labored breathing filled the silence between them, every breath like a fragile thread threatening to snap. Izuku's core pulsed faintly, even now. The echo of Ifrit still burning somewhere deep inside him. He swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry, even though he had none. You felt that? He whispered, his voice rough. Shizu's lips curved faintly in a sad smile. Yes, it was warm. Terrifying, but warm. She coughed again, the sound wet, her frail body shuddering. I've been fighting for so long, Izuku, living with that monster and see. Demi, my body is failing now that he's gone. I can feel it unraveling. Deku's tendrils come up to wrap around the chair he's somewhat sitting on. You don't have to, Shizu, you don't have to say this. I can find a way. Sage and I. Negative. Her body's life force is critically depleted. Recovery is impossible. Shizu chuckled softly at his stricken expression, the sound almost tender despite her pain. You're kind, Izuku, but you're not a miracle worker. Not yet. Her eyes glimmered faintly in the candlelight as she turned to him. Please, grant me this last kindness. Don't let me become just Magicules scattered to the wind. Let me live inside you. In your memories. I will. Any last words? Izuku asked, the tone solemn, a final hint of what to come. If you find the demon lord who summoned me, ask him this. Why me, why a child, also? I used to teach, my students will need to know of my fate. Will you do these last things for me? Shizu asked, her eyes dimming slightly. Her life force leaving with each second that passed. I promise on the name of Deku Tempest. No, on the name of Izuku Midoriya that I shall find whomever summoned you, and I promise to give a demon lord a punch in between their eyes. Deku, Izuku said, posing with a tendril stretched out in the action of punching. His name, Shizu became, her voice strained, and with her last breath. She speaks out, Leon Cromwell, and with that Shizu's eyes closed for the final time. The candlelight flickered across Deku's slime form, reflecting off the translucent green of his body as her final words hung in the air. The pulse of life that had clung to Shizu slowly faded, leaving her body slack and fragile. With seconds, her form ages to an ancient look, her hair grayed, and her once smooth skin wrinkled. Deku's tendrils trembled, hovering over her still form as if hesitant to complete the final act. The room was silent except for the faint crackle of the candle flame and the residual hum of energy lingering from Ifrit. I'll do as you asked, he murmured, voice thick with sorrow, even through his slime body. You won't vanish, I'll carry you with me. A shiver of energy passed through Deku as the tendrils touched her aged, frail body. Threads of Shizu's essence, memories, and the faint remnants of Ifrit quivered along his slime form, like delicate strands of silk being drawn into a storm. The light from his core flared briefly, illuminating the tent with an eerie, emerald radiance that danced across the wrinkled features of her withered form. AGKNOWLAGED, unique skill, predator active. Master Deku, are you and the swordswoman awake? The voice of Ganzu, the former goblin chief, asks from the flap of the medical tent. The flap opens and standing facing away from Ganzu was a naked human. Their green hair a cascade that hugged their head to their shoulders. The naked human turned, and the shining emerald eyes of a crying face stared back at them. The tent fell silent for a heartbeat. The flicker of candlelight catching off the naked human's form. "WHO or you?" Ganzu screamed out, his voice a torrent of anger, his judgment clouded slightly at the H. Horrible thoughts coursing through his mind. The tent flap opens once again, and Ranga sat at the opening. Ganzu began to form the words intruder, when Ranga's mental call came through his mind that sent that thought of an intruder tumbling out from his mind. Master, you're awake. The night after Shizu's passing was quiet. Too quiet. Ayuden slept under a blanket of starlight, the fires in the forges dimmed. And even Ranga's faint breathing outside the tent came slow and steady. Inside, Deku sat by the flickering glow of a single candle, watching the soft rise and fall of its flame. It still didn't feel real. He looked down at his reflection in the metal bowl beside him, a face that wasn't his, yet somehow was Shizu's features, but his own. A reflection of his former life and his new one. A symbol of the burden he'd inherited, and the promise he'd made. I'll carry you with me, he murmured, his voice breaking the still air. The words felt small compared to the silence that followed. The tent felt emptier without her presence, her calm, her strength, her quiet sorrow. His hand, still unfamiliar, too human, tightened on his knee. Shizu, you trusted me. I won't waste that. The candle flickered, its flame bending as though stirred by some unseen wind. Deku's eyelids grew heavy. His body, still adjusting to its new form, ached in ways his slime form never had. Slowly, the world dimmed to black. He stood in a classroom. Dust swirled lazily in the shafts of golden light streaming from tall windows. The air carried the faint scent of chalk and old paper. Wooden KS stretched out before him in uneven rows, their surfaces scratched by years of use. A faint hum of warmth filled the space, familiar, comforting, and achingly nostalgic. You're awake. That voice. Soft, steady, so unmistakably hers. Deku turned, and there she was, Shizu, standing at the front of the room. A calm reflection despite no longer being a breathing person anymore. Her presence glowed faintly, as if woven from memory and light, not flesh and blood. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt alive, filled with the weight of everything left unsaid. Shizu, Deku finally breathed. I thought you were gone. I am, she said gently. But even the dead can dream for a little while, when someone carries their soul. Deku swallowed hard. This place, it's yours, isn't it? She nodded, her gaze sweeping over the desks. A piece of it, a memory. My life as a teacher. Her voice softened. A life I once loved, before everything changed. The faint echo of laughter reached Deku's ears, small, bright voices drifting through the air. At the edges of the classroom, shadows took form, 5 children, their faces shadowed and indistinct, their laughter tinged with something hollow. Who are they? Deku asked quietly, though a part of him already knew. My students, Shizu said. Children who were brought here the same way I was, torn from their world, bound by magic they can't control. She stepped closer to him, eyes glowing with that same sorrowful warmth he'd seen before her death. Her gaze shifted toward the spectral children as they played in tea. He dim light, their laughter starting to crack, the warmth replaced by a quiet, gnawing fear. Their outlines flickered like candlelight in the wind. They don't know it yet, she continued, voice trembling, but the magicules inside them. Shizu didn't continue the sentence, letting the empty warning hang in the air as a warning to come. Deku's chest tightened. Even in this dream, even standing before her again, he could feel the ache in her voice. It wasn't fear, it was regret. The magicules inside them, Deku echoed softly. They'll destroy them, won't they? Shizu's eyes glimmered, with unshed tears, or perhaps they were only light, fragments of memory trying to hold their shape. They were born ordinary. Children who laughed, who cried, who missed home. But being summoned here changed them. Their souls can't bear the strain forever. The children's shadows flickered again, one moment laughing, the next trembling as bursts of raw magic sparked around them like dying stars. Deku took a step forward. But Shizu raised a gentle hand. You can't reach them here, she said. They're still alive, still waiting. Somewhere far from this dream. Deku's fists clenched at his sides. Then tell me where. Tell me how to help them. A faint smile curved her lips, sad, proud, knowing. You remind me of someone I once taught, she whispered. Always charging forward, even when you're scared. Shizu. They're in the kingdom of Ingrasia, she interrupted softly. At the Freedom Academy. There, they wait for someone who can give them hope. Someone who will see them not as weapons, but as children. The room began to dissolve, the desks fading into light, the children's laughter fading to a single echo. Save them, Izuku, she said. Let my students live the life I couldn't give them. Her figure blurred, light breaking apart into soft motes that drifted around him like fireflies. Wait, Shizu. Deku called, reaching out, but his hand passed through her as she smiled one last time. Deku jolted upright, breath sharp and heart pounding, the words still caught on his lips. A dream, or something more. Ranga, he thought, his mind reaching out through the link. Yes, master, came the deep, calm reply as the tense shadows rippled. From their folds, Ranga emerged, massive, silent, his fur gleaming faintly in the candle's dying light. I hope you're rested for a journey, Deku said quietly. Then hesitated. Oh, or the humans that followed Shizu still in Ayuden. The odd humans, yes, Ranga replied, amusement bleeding into the mental link. They are currently in the dining hall, eating with enthusiasm, especially after I informed them that Shizu entrusted her will to you. Deku exhaled slowly, shoulders sagging just a little. Good. I didn't want them sent away yet. Ranga's ears twitched. You intend to speak with them? I do, Deku said, resolve settling in his chest. The ache from the dream hadn't faded, but it had sharpened into something else. Purpose. They deserve to know what happened. And I'll need information. Information about the children, Ranga said, not a question. Deku nodded. If Shizu's students are still alive, then I won't ignore them. I can't. His hand clenched. No one should be summoned into this world just to die slowly. Ranga lowered his massive head in quiet respect. Then Ayuden will move with you, master. Deku looked toward the tent flap, toward the starlit town beyond it. A teacher, huh, he murmured, a small, nervous smile tugging at his lips. Guess I've got a lot to learn. The dining age. All of Ayuden was louder than Deku expected. Wooden tables had been pushed close together, bowls and plates stacked high with food. Laughter echoed off the walls, loud, human laughter, sharp and saint. Range in a town usually filled with goblin chatter and beastman voices. At the center of it all sat three humans. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with messy brown hair and a carefree grin, was already halfway through his third bowl of stew. This place is amazing, he declared loudly. I mean, free food, warm beds, no one trying to stab us. Kaval, keep your voice down, hissed the man beside him, thinner. Nervously clutching his cup as his eyes darted around the room. We're guests here, remember. The woman sitting across from them sighed, resting her chin in her hand. Her dark hair was tied back neatly. Eyes sharp and observant as they scanned the hall. You're going to give us away before we even speak to their leader, she said flatly. Deku paused just inside the doorway. Oh, you are the three humans that followed Shizu here, correct? Deku asked. His slime form wiggled lightly, translucent green and faintly glowing, cradled carefully in Shuna's arms like a precious jewel. Her expression was gentle and composed, though her grip was firm enough to keep him from slipping free. Behind her, Shion stood with her arms crossed, aura dangerously. Irritated, eyes locked on Shuna's hands. Why does she get to hold Lord Deku? The three humans froze. Kaval was the first to react, again. He slowly lowered his spoon. Is that, a slime? Guido let out a small, strangled noise. That slime just talked. Ellen didn't speak at first. Her eyes narrowed, studying Deku intently. Not his shape, but his presence. The calm authority behind the voice. The intelligence. You're the ruler of this town, she said finally. I am, Deku replied with a small, bobbing nod. My name is Deku Tempest. A pause. In this town, he continued, is Ayuden. The name carried weight. Even Ellen felt it. Shuna smiled politely. Shion cracked her knuckles. Deku tilted slightly in Shuna's arms. I was told you wished to speak with the leader of this town. So here I am. He looked between them, not threatening. Not imposing. Just watching. You followed Shizu. That means you were under her protection, Kaval swallowed. The carefree edge to him dulled. Yeah, she did. Right up until the end. Guido opened his mouth, then closed it again, jaw tight. Ellen studied Deku for a long moment before turning away with a single tear dropping down her cheek. The hall was quiet now. Even Kaval had stopped chewing. Deku watched them carefully, not as intruders, not as tools, but as people who had followed someone important to him. Shizu trusted you, he said softly. That alone tells me enough. He shifted slightly in Shuna's arms, the glow within his slime body steady and calm. You are welcome to stay in Ayuden, Deku continued. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried, firm without being cruel. Eat, rest, recover. No one here will harm you. Guido looked up sharply. But, Deku added, gently but unmistakably, Ayuden is a town built on trust. No fighting, no plotting, no harm toward my people. His gaze met Ellen's. If you can accept that, then you are my guests. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ellen turned back toward him and bowed her head, not deeply, but sincerely. Thank you, she said quietly. Caval followed suit, awkward but earnest. Guido hesitated, then nodded as well. Deku exhaled slowly. This wasn't a victory. It wasn't a battle won. But it was the first step. Somewhere deep inside him, Shizu's voice seemed to echo, not in sorrow this time, but in quiet approval. Ellen hesitated, then took a steadying breath. May we ask one final thing? She said, breaking the silence. Deku tilted in Shuna's arms, a small question mark bubbling up from inside his slime body, wobbling faintly before settling. Go on, he said. Ellen swallowed. You have an ability called Predator, correct? Ellen continued, her voice trembling. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, words pressing against her throat but refusing to come. Deku nodded, as much as a slime could. We just want to say goodbye. The words fell into the hull like fragile glass. A quiet sob escaped her lips, and she quickly covered her mouth. Beside her, Caval looked down at the table, his fists clenched tightly. While Guido gripped his mug with shaking hands. For a moment, Deku said nothing. Then he gently slipped from Shuna's arms and dropped softly onto the floor. His body began to glow. The slime stretched upward, its form shifting and flowing like liquid light. Limbs emerged first, then a torso, then a face slowly taking shape as the glow dimmed. When the transformation finished, a human figure stood where the slime had been. Soft green hair framed their face, falling in gentle waves to their shoulders. Emerald eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, filled with warmth and quiet understanding. The face carried Shizu's calm grace. But the expression, the softness in the eyes, the earnestness, was unmistakably Deku. Neither fully male nor female. Neither entirely Shizu nor entirely Izuku. But someone who carried both. The three adventurers froze. Ellen's hand trembled as she stepped forward. Shizu, she whispered. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then Caval suddenly dropped to one knee. His head bowing deeply. Guido followed immediately after, setting his mug down with a trembling hand before lowering his head as well. Ellen bowed too, tears finally spilling freely down her cheeks. Lady Shizu, Caval said hoarsely. Thank you for everything, Guido added quietly. Ellen's voice broke as she spoke. We're sorry we couldn't protect you. The hall remained silent as their words hung in the air. Deku stood there, saying nothing, simply allowing them the moment they needed. Not as Shizu, but as the one who carried her will. The silence lingered for a long moment. Eventually, Ellen wiped her eyes and straightened, though her voice was still unsteady. There's something else you should know, she said. Deku looked toward her, still in his human form. What is it? Ellen exchanged a glance with Caval and Guido. We've traveled through the kingdom of Ingrasia before, Ellen continued, folding her hands together in a small, thoughtful gesture. Shizu once told us about the place she used to teach, the Freedom Academy. It's where children summoned from other worlds are sent, Guido added quietly. Caval scratched the back of his head. They're supposed to learn how to control their magic there, but Shizu said it wasn't enough. Deku's eyes widened slightly. Freedom Academy, he repeated quietly. The name matched the one from his dream. The classroom, the children, Shizu's voice asking him to save them. In the kingdom of Ingrasia, he finished softly. Ellen blinked in surprise. You already know about it. Shizu told me, he said simply. Earning confused stares from the party of adventurers. The three adventurers exchanged confused looks. Caval was the first to speak. Shizu told you, he repeated slowly. When exactly did that happen? Deku hesitated. How do you explain a dream sent by someone whose soul you carry? Last night, he said at last. Guido blinked. Last night. But, Ellen raised a hand, silencing him. She studied Deku carefully again. The same way she had when he first entered the hall. I see, she said quietly. Caval frowned. You see what? Ellen looked back toward Deku. Shizu chose him, she said simply. That was enough. Guido's shoulders relaxed slightly. Caval let out a long breath and leaned back in his chair. Well, he said, scratching his cheek, that explains a lot. Deku tilted his head. It does. Caval laughed. Yeah, I mean, you're a talking slime who runs a monster town in the middle of the forest. He gestured vaguely around the hall. At this point, dream messages from dead heroes doesn't even crack the top 10 weirdest things I've seen this week. Shion snorted from behind Shuna. Watch your tongue, human. Caval stiffened immediately. All right. Ellen ignored them. If you intend to help the children, she said, then you'll need allies who'll spread some good rumors about this town you're building. Here. Deku looked confused, then a sudden bout of inspiration struck. Yeah, if you pass on that we helped you with your gear and weapons, then Ayuden will be known as the friendly monster hotspot. Deku said with a wide smile. The road away from Ayuden stretched long and quiet beneath a pale morning sky. Ellen walked at the front, her cloak pulled tight against the wind. Behind her, Caval and Guido followed, far quieter than usual. You really think people will believe us? Guido muttered. Caval snorted. Believe it. We just came from a monster town that fed us better than most human cities. If anything, they won't believe it enough. Ellen didn't turn back. They will, she said softly. Because we're not the only ones talking. The wind carried her words forward. The great hall of the kingdom of Falmouth was heavy with tension. Nobles stood in hushed clusters, their voices low, uneasy. At the far end of the chamber, seated upon a gilded throne, King Edmaris leaned forward, fingers gripping the armrest. Say that again, the king demanded. A kneeling merchant swallowed hard. A monster nation, your majesty, he said. Deep within the forest, organized, armed, trading goods, high-quality goods, at prices that undercut our own markets. Murmurs rippled through the court. Impossible. Monsters don't build nations, who's leading them? The merchant hesitated. A slime, they say. Silence. Then, laughter. Sharp. Disbelieving. Uneasy. A slime. One noble scoffed. Next you'll tell us it wears a crown. The merchant's voice trembled. They say, it speaks. That silenced the room. The king's expression darkened. And the adventurers? He asked. Multiple parties confirm it, the merchant replied. Including a group recently returned from the forest. They claim the town is peaceful, even welcoming. Welcoming. A noble snapped. Monsters. Another stepped forward, face pale. If this is true, trade routes will shift. Caravans will reroute. We could lose everything, someone finished. The word hung in the air like a blade. King Edmaris leaned back slowly, though sweat beaded faintly at his temple. A nation of monsters. Organized. Prospering. And worse, accepted. His fingers tightened. We cannot allow that, he said quietly. The murmurs stopped. The king's gaze hardened, fear twisting into something sharper. Monsters belong beneath humanity, not beside it. Silence. Then, slowly, a noble bowed. Shall we investigate, your majesty? The king's eyes flickered. For just a moment, hesitation. Then it vanished. No, he said. The single word fell like a hammer. The court stilled. King Edmaris rose slowly from his throne. His shadow stretching long across the marble floor. We will not wait for monsters to rise to our level, he said, voice low, cold. We will remind them of their place. A chill ran through the hall. Somewhere among the gathered nobles, a man in priestly robes lowered his gaze, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The forest blurred past in streaks of green and shadow. Wind rush. Deep through the trees as Ranga leapt from root to stone, his massive form barely disturbing the earth beneath him. Upon his back, Deku sat low against his fur, one hand gripping gently while the other rested against his chest. The rhythm of the journey was steady. Fast. Relentless. So this is the kingdom of Ingrasia's direction, right? Deku asked, raising his voice slightly over the wind. Ranga's voice answered directly in his mind. Yes, master. At this pace, we will arrive within a few days. A few days. Deku exhaled slowly. That dream still lingered. The classroom. The children. Shizu's voice. Save them. His hand tightened slightly in Ranga's fur. Ranga, he said after a moment. Yes, master. Do you think I can actually do this? The question slipped out before he could stop it. For once, Ranga didn't answer immediately. Wind howled past them. Trees bent. Time stretched. Then, you already have, Ranga said simply. Deku blinked. You built Ayuden, Ranga continued. You gave monsters a place to belong. A place where they are not hunted, but live. A pause. Saving a few children is not beyond you. Deku let out a small, awkward laugh. When you say it like that, it sounds simple. It is not simple, Ranga replied calmly. But it is something only you would attempt. That sounded about right. Deku leaned forward slightly, eyes sharpening. Then I'll do it, not as a hero, not as a ruler, but as a teacher. The gates of Ayuden stood open. That alone was unusual. Where once only monsters passed freely, now, humans stood at the entrance. Hesitant, curious, afraid. So this is the place. One merchant muttered, clutching his satchel tightly. The monster town. Beside him, an adventurer adjusted the sword at his hip. Doesn't feel like a trap, he said. 2. Open. From atop the gate wall. A pair of hobgoblin guards watched carefully. Not hostile, but not relaxed either. Inside the town, movement had already begun to change. More eyes, more whispers, more uncertainty. At the center of Ayuden, Shuna stood calmly, hands folded within her sleeves. They're arriving sooner than expected, she said softly. Beside her, Benimaru's arms were crossed, his gaze fixed on the gates. Let them come, he said. But we watch them carefully. And if they cause trouble? Shion asked, her voice carrying a dangerous edge. Benimaru didn't hesitate. Then we remind them whose territory they've entered. Shuna sighed softly. We are not here to intimidate them. We are, Benimaru replied, if they forget themselves. A pause. Then, Shuna smiled faintly. Lord Deku would want them welcomed. Shion clicked her tongue. TCH. Fine. But her grip tightened slightly. Just in case. The forest began to thin. Light broke through the canopy ahead. Deku leaned forward slightly. We're getting closer, aren't we? Yes, Ranga replied. Beyond the trees, a road. A kingdom. And waiting there, children who didn't have much time left. Deku's eyes hardened. Hold on, he whispered. I'm coming. Falmouth's training grounds rang with steel. Swords clashed. Shields buckled. Orders barked sharply across the yard as soldiers drilled in tight formation. There. Movements sharper than necessary, more aggressive. More urgent. This was not routine. At the edge of the grounds, a noble stood watching, arms folded neatly behind his back. They've increased the drills. Another man beside him noted quietly. They have, the noble replied. At His Majesty's command. Nearby, crates were being unloaded. Not food, not trade goods, weapons, spears bundled in dozens, fresh forged blades, barrels of arrows stacked with care. A third figure approached, lowering his voice. Scouts have been dispatched toward the forest. The noble's eyes narrowed slightly. And, no engagement orders, the man replied. Only observation. A pause. Then, for now, the wind shifted. Far above, banners bearing the crest of the kingdom stirred against the sky. Preparation, not action. Yet, inside the castle, King Edmaris stood before a large map. A single area had been marked. The forest, a nation of monsters, he murmured. Behind him, unseen, a quiet voice spoke. Fear spreads faster than armies, Your Majesty. The king did not turn. Then we will give that fear a shape. Thanks for watching.